Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to a new episode of Anatomy of a Season, the series where we analyze the year of a given team, what led to it all, and the results thereafter. We've covered champs, chumps, miracle runs, and whatnot, and hey, we're about to present to you here can be very unsettling. We know Halloween is over, we figure a belated spooky season spectacle is appropriate, but we must warn you, if you are easily scared, this might not be the video for you as we cover... No, say it ain't so! Okay, well, it's not quite as disgusting as the human centipede, but the 1992-93 Ottawa Senators will still leave you feeling just as nauseous. I mean, just look at this picture. It just reminds me of this episode of The Simpsons where Flanders controls the world and the hooks are being used to force people to smile with the smart editing out of the hooks. Or some might be legit happy to find out, hey, my NHL career's not over yet because an expansion team has arrived. Yes. I know a lot of you Sens fans out there and even others will say, it's so easy to pick on an expansion team. But I say three things. One, yes it is, deal with it. And two, there's expansion teams, then there's the 92-93 Senators. Three, the rest aren't getting a free pass, this is just the first one I'm covering. But of course, with every story comes a backstory. As some of you already know, this isn't the first team to be called the Ottawa Senators. Originally founded in 1883, 10 years before the Stanley Cup was even a thing, there was actually quite a few good teams in the Ottawa region around the turn of the 20th century. The Senators, however, won the Stanley Cup for the first time in 1903, and known as the Ottawa Silver Seven. Well, keep in mind, the rules for the Stanley Cup were different back then. They were considered champions year after year until it was taken by another team successfully, who challenged them. They held it through 1904, 05, and 06 before losing to the Montreal Wanderers in March of 1906. Then by 1909, they took it back. Then they lost it before getting it back again in 1911. In 1917, the now officially named Ottawa Senators were now part of the National Hockey League, brand new National Hockey League. They won the Stanley Cup in 1920, 21, 23, 27, and 27. They were pretty much hockey royalty. Notable players from the old Sens had more than 30 Hall of Famers, plus builders as well. But just to name a few, and again, sorry for you historians if I'm leaving anyone out, but just a few just to give you an idea: Clint Benedict, George Boucher, Frank Niver, Cy Dennedy, Billy Gilmore, Punch Broadbent, Alec Connell, Rat Westwick, Eddie Girard, Jack Darragh, Percy Lesueur, and of course, great defenseman King Clancy. Unfortunately, the glory days were gone by the 1930s, and the financially strapped ownership of the team, plus bad seasons and dwindling attendance, meant the team was in peril, and even suspended operations for a year. And they were forced to sell players, including the infamous King Clancy deal to Toronto. The Senators were forced to move to St. Louis for the 1934-35 season, becoming the St. Louis Eagles. They were even worse. They failed miserably in that market and ceased operations after that season. Fast forward 52 years later to late 1987. Real estate developer Bruce Firestone, part of Terrace Investments Limited, was told by manager Duncan MacDonald that the NHL was interested in bringing 3 new franchises to the league in the 1990s, as stated in an article written for the Ottawa Citizen. Firestone, a hockey fan, wanted hockey back in the town of Ottawa, and decided he was going to launch a bid through Terrace Investments. Despite reluctance from colleagues and executives at Terrace, Firestone was determined to make this a reality. However, it was believed the firm didn't have the assets to possess a team, let alone an arena. But after a while, Firestone and the Terrace Company found a good site for the arena by 1989 in the town of Canada. Terrace announced publicly in June of 1989 that they fully intended on bringing an NHL franchise back to Ottawa using the Senators' name. Then the official Bring Back the Senators campaign kicked off in the fall of 1989, and plans were revealed for the Palladium Arena, which would seat over 22,000 fans. Unheard of at that point in the NHL. Despite crooked Alan Eagleson's naysaying, and even Jim Durrell, the mayor of Ottawa, believing the arena wouldn't come to fruition, fans sent in pledges towards season ticket sales by the fall of 1990. So rather than take Ron Joyce's bid for a hockey team in Hamilton with a ready-made NHL-style arena and a market full of support, the NHL felt that since Ottawa was Canada's capital and had a lot of media coverage, that December 6, 1990, it was finally approved the Ottawa Senators would become a new NHL franchise come the 1992-93 season. Okay, I have to admit, this logo is pretty damn good. It's a detailed design, it stands out, and it's marketable. The NHL had been 21 teams strong from 1979 to 91 when the San Jose Sharks officially entered the league in 1991-92, making it 22 teams. The Sens weren't the only team, however, entering the league for the 1992-93 season. The Tampa Bay Lightning were also set to debut that year, expanding the league to 24 teams. However, the project for the new Palladium Arena was meeting many obstacles and wouldn't be ready for the inaugural season, and also its capacity from 22,000 was going to be shrinking down to about 18. They would have to play in the Civic Center, not a bad venue, which hosted the OHL's Ottawa 67's junior team, but could barely hold just over 10,000 people. But it would have to do for now. So under Firestone and Terrace's ownership, who was going to run this team? No doubt they need someone with hockey-savvy smarts and experience. Someone who will no doubt build a formidable foundation on what can be built on. They choose Mel Bridgman. Wait, what? No experience whatsoever on any level of hockey management. Okay, yeah, Mel was a really good hockey player in his day. Played 977 games and 701 points and had great leadership skills. But are you kidding me? Oh, for something of this task, you need someone with at least a little bit of experience. I mean, granted, yes, the Senators went after people, even such as Scotty Bowman, who turned the job down. But so Mel Bridgman? I mean, the Lightning had Phil Esposito as their GM, and yes, I'm aware Phil isn't exactly one of the best GMs of all times, either before or after this. But at least he had experience with even 3 seasons in New York with the Rangers. Bridgman, however, still had those kick-ass eyebrows, giving Eugene Levy a run for his money, and that mustache, immaculate. It should be noted that John Ferguson Sr., who had immense experience at general manager, was named director of player personnel. The guy managed the Jets for a decade. But who was going to be the bench boss of this club? The team's head coach? Well, that was going to be Rick Bowness. Okay, this isn't too bad of a choice. Bowness had a lot of experience at coaching at this point. He'd been an assistant in Winnipeg for the Jets, was briefly their head coach even. He had coached the Moncton Hawks and Maine Mariners in the AHL, and during the 1991-92 season, he actually coached the Boston Bruins and helped them all the way to the Wales Conference Final. So this was a good choice, but now it's time to put the team together. On June 18, 1992, in Montreal, the expansion draft will take place. The San Jose Sharks are exempt from this draft, but the 21 remaining teams were allowed to protect 2 goaltenders and 14 position players. And our boy Mel Bridgman was ahead of the curve, using technology known as a laptop computer to prepare for this draft and use it on draft day. Yeah, maybe he's ready for this job after all. And the day of the draft, the laptop failed, and things didn't look good. They didn't have a backup plan. And Bridgman and his team pretty much forgot a lot of what their strategy is in this draft, which prompted Lightning general manager Phil Esposito to quip, "What the f*** is a laptop?" Okay, well, I have no proof of that, but you probably did hear that in his voice, admit it. Anyway, laptop or no, the proceedings commence, as first it's your goalies and the Sens pick first. Well, obviously they remember their first pick. They go with Peter Sidorkiewicz from Hartford. Not a bad choice, really. P. Sid was actually a very talented goaltender who played excellently in several games, but was not on a very good team. He had a record of 71, 79, and 24, and had pretty good 3.33 goals against average. Keep in mind, this is still in the high-scoring era. That was probably good enough for top 10 some years. But below average, .877 save percentage, he had 8 shutouts in 4 seasons with the Whalers. Prior season, however, wasn't kind to him. He was 9, 19, and 6 with a passable 3.34 GAA again, and an 82 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. The Lightning then took pens back at Wendell Young. His career didn't go too far. The Senators then took Mark LaForest, who is part of the Rangers system, but never once played a game for them. At 30 years old, he did have NHL experience, sadly with a really bad Red Wings team, a decent Flyers team, and a Leafs team from 1985 to 1990, but hadn't played an NHL game since March 28, 1990. He did have a record of 25, 52, and 4, and a really bad 418 goals against average, and his .870 save percentage ain't much better despite 2 shutouts. However, in 9 seasons in the AHL, he was 96, 53, and 10, and won himself a Calder Cup in 86 with the Adirondack Red Wings. And he had a decent 91-92 season with the Binghamton Rangers with a record of 25, 15, and 3, a 3.42 goals against average, 883 save percentage, and a shutout. The Lightning took Frederick Chabot from the Habs, who never played one game for the Bolts, so the Sens seem to be edging out their counterparts so far. But now on to the defense. Indeed, the Blue Liners. Who do the Sens go with? Oh, Brad Shaw from the Whalers, who was actually a former alumni of the Ottawa 67s, so he's pretty known in town. He'd been in the Whalers system since '84 and was called up a few times, but didn't play his first full year until '89-90 and was actually named to the NHL's All-Rookie team. He's been pretty good since. Overall, 212 games played. He has decent offensive numbers with 11 goals and 8 forces for 95 points, but is more of a traditional defender. Despite his -8, he had a decent year in 1991-92 in 62 games, and had 25 points and was a +1. The Bolts then took Joe Ricci and Sean Chambers in their next 2 picks. Both, I have to say, are much better options than what the Sens have picked so far. No disrespect to Brad Shaw, who would actually become an alternate captain of the team. Next, the Sens took 23-year-old Darren Rumble, a first-round pick for the Flyers in 1987. He's been in their system ever since, only playing 3 NHL games, but had done very well in the AHL with the Hershey Bears over 3 seasons. He had size, he was a physical defender with decent offensive numbers with 122 points in 209 games. In 1991-92, had 12 goals, 54 assists for 66 points in 79 games. And he had toughness with 118 penalty minutes to boot. Not a terrible pick. But then the Bolts went with Peter Taglianetti, who had a lot more experience and even a Stanley Cup ring with the Penguins in 1991, though his time in Tampa was brief. The Sens had 2 picks ahead. Next was Dominic Lavoie, who would only play 2 games, and then Brad Miller of the Sabres next. The Bolts took Bob McGill, who had 683 games of NHL experience, although he would never play a game for them. The Sens then took Ken Hammond, an NHL and minor league journeyman who joined the Canucks late last season. He was a former NCAA star, initially taken by the Kings in 1983. He does have 131 games of NHL experience over the course of 9 seasons with 7 teams. Ouch. Well, he was also a -31. He played 314 games in the AHL before joining the Canucks for the playoffs this past year. He played 46 games for the expansion Sharks. He had 15 points, 82 penalty minutes, and was a -17. Really, Mel? You sure you can't get that laptop working? Tampa's next 2 picks, Jeff Bloomberg, who, actually, to be fair, was a waste, an NHL veteran of over 805 games, Doug Crossman. Yeah, his time in Tampa was brief, but man, the Sens are really missing the boat here. Then the Sens took Ken Painter. And next, Tampa took Rob Ramage, an NHL veteran of 949 games and an all-star. He was always a very tough defenseman, and how was he still available at this point? Yeah, again, Ramage's time in Tampa was brief, but who knows what could have been if he was in Ottawa. And yeah, these guys were also good trade bait if that was the case. The Sens then took John Van Kessel as their final defensive pick, who never played an NHL game before or since or ever. Let's move on to the forwards, shall we? The Bolts wasted a pick on Michael Mungo. The Sens, however, beat them here. They actually made a really good pick in Sylvain Turgeon, a former All-Star in Hartford with 2 40-goal-plus seasons, 2 more with 30-plus, and 2 others with 20-plus during his 9 NHL seasons. He has scored 220 goals, 185 assists for 407 points in 512 games. Really good numbers, but is a staggering -53, though he's played for some really bad clubs. After 6 seasons in Hartford, he had a 30-goal season in New Jersey. He was considered a hot commodity, and the Habs traded Claude Lemieux for him. Way wrong move! Turgeon spent the last 2 seasons with Montreal and has failed miserably, some due to injury, some due to just inconsistent play, which, even when he was at his peak, was a problem. He's coming off 18 points in 56 games and a -4 on a really good Habs team, so I don't know. Maybe this isn't such a great pick. Nah, just kidding. But perhaps a shot with the brand new club is just what he needs. That being said, and the Sens have the next pick, and it's Mike Peluso. Okay. Well, I guess the Sens do need toughness, any team does, and he is a nasty customer. In 2 full NHL seasons with the Blackhawks, 116 games, he accumulated 728 penalty minutes, including a league-leading 408 in 1991-92, and he did provide some depth for the Hawks in their 1992 run to the Stanley Cup Final, playing on all but 1 game. He also did have success in the IHL for the Indianapolis Ice, helping them win a Turner Cup in 1990. The Bolts then took Sylvia Starr and Anatoly Semenov, who, again, didn't last long. The Sens then took Rob Murphy, a 23-year-old who had been in the Canucks system now for 5 years, a centerman with size and aggression who had played 73 games with the Canucks over the course of 5 seasons. His game just wasn't developing the way they wanted and just had 10 points, but had done better in the IHL with the Milwaukee Admirals, totaling 75 goals, 94 assists for 169 points in 166 games. Coming off a season with 26 goals, 38 assists for 64 points in 73 games and 141 penalty minutes. The Bolts countered, however, with tough guy Mike Hartman. Next for the Sens go for more size and grind with Mark Lamb. Okay, this actually isn't too bad. A good pick to add depth to lower lines. While known more as a grinding forward, his offensive numbers weren't bad. He had 81 points in 199 games, and was very key, however, in the Oilers' Stanley Cup win in 1990, as Mark Messier credits Lamb for being the secret weapon that actually got them out of the first round against the Jets that year. In 1991-92 for the Oilers, he had 28 points and was a +4 in 59 games. but again, injury issues. Tampa then took tough guy and ever popular Basil McRae. The next pick would be the man who would be deemed their first ever captain, 13-year veteran of 939 games, Laurie Boschman of the Devils. Originally a top prospect picked in the 1979 draft by the Leafs in the first round, 9th overall. He didn't stay there very long, and after a brief stint with the Oilers, he went to the Jets, where he seemed to find his groove over the course of 8 seasons. He's tough, he's scrappy, he's downright nasty. He had a scoring touch too, and does have leadership skills. He had 220 goals, 341 assists for 561 points. He also had over 2,100 penalty minutes. He was a really bad minus 103, but still was seen as a great leader. Again, the Jets were dominated by the Oilers and Flames for years. His scoring touch, however, had dwindled over the last few seasons, and is coming off a season where he had 28 points in 75 games, but was a +9, which is actually his career best. He was also an alternate captain on the Devils. The Lightning took young grinding forward Rob DeMaio. Then the Sens took another penalty box dweller in Jim Thompson. Next, the Bolts took Steve Maltese, not much better. The Sens took Lonnie Loach, who had a great IHL career. Another penalty man, Dan Vincelette, went to Tampa, and we're scraping the bottom of the barrel now. The Sens, however, go with Mark Freer, an undrafted forward who was picked up by the Flyers in 1986. So while he did play 50 games from last season, where he notched 13 points and was a -1, he only played 59 total in the NHL. Well, did very well in the AHL with the Hershey Bears with 89 goals, 146 for 229 points in 248 games. The Bolts then took Tim Berglund. The Sens then took Chris Lindberg. Then the Bolts took Brian Bradley, who proved to be the big steal in this draft. Sens missed out on that one, but then again, who would have thought? Then it was Jeff Lazaro for the Sens, Keith Osborne for the Bolts, and then for the Sens next was Darcy Lowen, who had been in the Sabre system since 1988, another tough guy, but one with a lot of heart and determination. He had just 12 NHL games experience, but was very popular with the fans of the AHL franchise, the Rochester Americans, where he accumulated 416 penalty minutes in 194 games in 3 seasons and added 77 points. The Lightning took Shane Stevenson. The Sens took Blair Acton. I cannot pronounce that name. The Bolts took Tim Hunter at 10 in the draft. Yeah, I should mention the laptop malfunction also caused Brisbane to mistakenly take protected players from a couple teams. Of course, he was corrected. But his inexperience was on display, and Espo, well, I would say he totally schooled him here, as Tampa's picks were only slightly better than Ottawa's. But Tampa picked different elements to build their team and had a much better strategy, while the Sens just seemed to go with random picks. I'm not saying that's the case, but definitely came out that way, and the way Bridgman acted in this draft without that precious laptop, well, that also might have been the case in some picks. And yeah, some of you may say I'm giving Phil Esposito too much credit, and you might be right, actually. But bear in mind, I'm only talking in the context of this draft. I'm not talking about future seasons. We'll get to that in another video. But Melly better rest up. It ain't gonna get any easier. As indeed, 2 days later came the 1992 NHL entry draft at the Montreal Forum, where the Ottawa Senators had the number 2 pick overall in the draft. This was a big groundbreaking year for the draft, as European growth in the NHL with the fall of the Iron Curtain is more rapid than ever. And the first round was predicted to be full of European talent, and there were some great players available. Even Bridgman and his dime store laptop can't screw this one up. Tampa had the first overall pick. They made an excellent choice in Czech defenseman Roman Hamrlik. And I think the Sens don't screw this one up. Well, yep, they took Russian junior superstar Alexei Yashin from HC Dynamo Moscow. In 2 years, he hasn't accumulated a lot of big numbers, but his progress has been monitored. And again, sometimes the draft is just about potential as well. And after a great showing, however, leading his country to a gold medal in the 1992 World Juniors, he has shown a lot of spark. He has tremendous size, is a strong stick handler, can make big plays. But his defensive work did spark some concern. Yashin wouldn't join the Sens this year with commitments to his homeland, but on paper at this time, the Sens did make the right choice here. But they'll need that new arena soon because Yashin's head won't fit in the Civic Center. Now let's take a look at the rest of the draft. And to be fair, 1992 wasn't the strongest overall class, despite its game-changing first round. Other than Yashin, this core only played a combined 182 games for the Sens, with 7 players not even playing a single game. In the second round, they took center Chad Penny when Michael Pekka was still available, and he was a member of the Ottawa 67s, no less. They took defenseman Radek Hammer in the fourth round, who would play 11 games when Robert Svela, another Czech defenseman, was available. He'd play 655. Though one player will be joining them this year, and he is worth a bit of a look. He was 11th round pick, 30-year-old Czech superstar, the man with the epic unibrow, small, hard-working right winger Thomas Jelinek. He was a big part of pro hockey in Czechoslovakia and very popular in his homeland in 12 seasons in the Czech League. He scored 152 goals for 122 assists for 274 points in 469 games. Indeed, for his home, he won 3 bronze medals at the World Championships in 89, 90, and the most recent 92, just a little while earlier. Speaking of 92, this was a huge year for him as Czechs took the bronze at the 1992 Winter Olympics, and he also played in the 1991 Canada Cup. He spent the 91-92 season, however, playing pro hockey in Finland with 47 points in 41 games, and also played for the HCCR Swiss team during the league playoffs that year, and had a good showing. Now he's about to join the NHL, and again, that unibrow that won't quit. And now Mel Bridgman is getting jealous. Nah, just kidding. What I meant to say is Mel Bridgman is about to wheel and deal. 2 days after the draft, the Sens traded Chris Lindbergh to the Flames, where they got him from in the first place in the expansion draft, for Mark Osiecki, a 23-year-old defenseman. Osiecki played 50 games for the Flames last year, but the Flames were a pretty rough team. He did show some promise in his rookie year, despite a -4, but was again more of a traditional stay-at-home defender and also had success in the IHL. In July, Mel made more moves, including signing Martin Saint-Amour to a 2-year deal that didn't go anywhere. But on July 20th, he made a good move, acquiring 14-year veteran defenseman Brad Marsh from the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for future considerations. Marsh was a towering presence and a hard hitter, and he was also a very definition of an old-school blue liner. In the original 6 era, he might have been a Hall of Famer. He has played over 1,000 games since the 1978-79 season and is a career plus 84. He is best known for the 7 seasons he spent with the Philadelphia Flyers, where he helped make it to the Cup final twice in 85 and 87. Above all, he provides great leadership, too. He'll also be named alternate captain of this team. He was a team captain in Calgary early in his career. Again, was an alternate captain for 3 seasons in Philly, 2 seasons in Toronto, and is coming off a stint in Detroit, where he was for them, too, in 91-92. But injuries have become issues, and again, this is kind of becoming a recurring theme with some of the players being acquired here, as he missed over 70 games over the last 2 seasons. The Leafs had acquired him back, actually, not long before this, but then parted with him easily. Be that as it may, he'll be a big part of this first-year Senators team. And then just over a week later, on July 28th, the Sens acquired Jody Hull from the Rangers for future considerations. Hull was a former first-round draft pick of the Whalers in 1987. After 2 seasons, 98 games, they felt his game wasn't coming together. And the Rangers felt the same way, however, as he played 50 games for them over the course of 2 seasons. In 148 NHL games, Hull had 28 goals, 36 assists for 64 points, and was a passable -2. But he played very well in the AHL for the Binghamton Rangers in 91-92 with 34 goals, 31 assists for 65 points. Then Bridgman, a couple days later, went on to sign Tony Cimarello, who had played 2 games. Then Mark Lobel, who had played 9 games for the Dallas Stars. Yes, I'm aware. Okay, listen. I know they have to build the minor league system too here, but even there, these guys didn't really pan out. That day, he also signed Andrew McBain. Well, okay. Look, nobody expects the Sens to sign game changers, but I mean, come on. These expansion teams don't have Gary Bettman holding their hand. But the Lightning were certainly looking a lot deeper than the Sens in terms of talent, and also had much healthier players, it seemed, even though, yes, the careers of Rob Ramage and Steve Kasper would take interesting turns. But anyway, McBain is an NHL veteran of 494 games. He had 111 goals, 148 assists for 259 points, -67. But again, didn't play for the best teams. He is best known for his days with the Jets, as he was a first-round pick in 1983, but despite being a role player, he was considered a bit of a bust. But after back-to-back 30-goal seasons in 88 and 89, it looked like he finally broke out, but no. He went to Pittsburgh and didn't play well. Then he was sent to Vancouver, where he'd been in their system now for 3 seasons with the occasional call-up. For the last 2 seasons in the IHL at the Milwaukee Admirals, he has actually played very well. 51 goals, 70 assists for 129 points in 112 games. So in August, Mark Ferner was signed to a 1-year deal. Next, is Bridgman handing out these deals on toilet paper? Seriously. On August 13, 1992, the Sens acquired veteran goalie Steve Weeks from the Capitals for, you guessed it, future considerations. Weeks never played a single game for the Caps, and they got him for nothing, and they gave him up for nothing. Some of you may say, oh, Bridgman is smart for that. He's not losing anything. Well, yes and no. Basically, it's these other teams playing Mel for a fool, just getting rid of players, unloading them that they don't want to clear out their budget. Just one less paycheck for them to sign. Future considerations, my ass. Ugh. The Lightning were playing their deals a little smarter than this, and I emphasize a little. Anyway, yeah, Steve Weeks, an NHL veteran of 11 seasons, has been a starter, has been a backup. Started with the Rangers for 3 seasons, played in Hartford for 4, and the Canucks for 4. Had brief stints with the Islanders and the Kings recently that went okay, at least in the Islanders it did. Had a record of 112, 114, and 33. Not great, but considering the teams he was on, also not terrible. A meth 3.67 goals against average, and even more meth, 873 save percentage. Last year between the Islanders and the Kings, he was a pretty good 10-7-2, and again, played well with the Islanders. And meth 3.69 goals against average, but actually a pretty okay 887 save percentage. But anyway, next. Doug Smale was then signed by the team. Again, good hockey player, NHL veteran of 12 seasons. He was best known for the 10 seasons he spent in Winnipeg. Very popular fan favorite, grinding forward and solid penalty killer. His offensive input isn't bad either. With 445 points in 794 games, he also played in the NHL All-Star Game in 1990. He spent the last 2 seasons with brief stints in Minnesota and Quebec, but has missed 57 games in the last 2 seasons. Okay, look, I know expansion teams have always taken past their prime veterans, but again, it just seems Tampa was slightly smarter, even with their past their prime veterans. And a lot of these guys on the Sens even stay healthy. Next. Defenseman Gord Dineen. Yeah. Dineen had 410 games of NHL experience, a bit gritty, but for years, again, suffered from consistency issues and injuries. Best known for the time he spent with the Islanders, it seemed he was getting his game going by the mid to late 80s, but a trade to Minnesota slowed him down again. And he has spent the past 4 seasons in the Penguin system, mostly spending time in the minors with the Muskegon Lumberjacks of the IHL. And to be fair, was actually coming off a really good season there. He had 279 games of minor league experience. But anyway, next. Well, we head into September, and Mel's still making deals. The Sens signed Jamie Baker, who has been in the Nordiques system for a few years now. After a couple call-ups, he got his chance with the Nords, as his size was decent grinding forward. Playing 52 games, garnering 17 points, was a -5, which on this Nordiques team in 91-92 is actually not that bad. Over the course of the next 3 seasons with the AHL's Halifax Citadels, in 133 games, he had 36 goals, 75 assists, and 111 points. They found another big center in Neil Brady, a former first-round pick for the New Jersey Devils in 1986. His game never developed again the way they'd hoped. He didn't get a call-up. He did get a call-up in a few games, had 6 points in 29 games, and wasn't even 0. In the minors, he had close to 200 points in 223 games, including 42 points in 33 games recently, but again, dealing with injuries. Next, we have Chris Luongo, in relation to Roberto, as he was a Detroit native and has been in the Red Wings system for a few seasons and has played 4 games in the NHL, but has had a lot of success for the AHL's Ottawa Red Wings, coming off a Calder Cup win this past year. As good as Luongo has the potential to be, the Sens don't have an offensive-minded defenseman, and look, in this area, you kind of still needed that. And yet another penalty-accumulating player, Jim Kite, veteran of 519 NHL games, who can't stay healthy to save his life, has spent a lot of times in the minors lately and gets a 1-year deal. I take back what I said about Mel Bridgman making deals on toilet paper. He's using used toilet paper. The season is drawing closer. Defenseman Norm McIver joins the team in early October. Okay, this actually is pretty good. The Sens will count on him to be their offensive defenseman, and you can see why. He's a 28-year-old undrafted defenseman originally who fought his way into the league way back in 1987 and had stints with the Rangers and Whalers, mostly spending time in the AHL and doing well there. In the AHL, speaking of which, he had 13 goals, 113 assists for 145 points in 197 games. He had an epic year with the Cape Breton Oilers in 1990-91, was named Defenseman of the Year in the AHL, and was a first-team All-Star. It won him a full-time spot in the Oilers roster in 91-92, but this Oilers team was starting to go downhill, but regardless, he still had a pretty good season. 6 goals, 34 assists for 40 points, and was a +20. Although, again, he missed several games due to injury. In 183 games, he had 118 goals, 87 assists for 105 points, and was a +22. Yeah, again, this was actually a smart grab for the Senators. Look, most expansion teams are gonna suck. Especially when you don't have, again, Gary Bettman spoon-feeding you, as he was still several months away from gaining power. But even so, the goal is to build a solid foundation to build on further down the road to make your team good. Bridgman has packed this team with players who, again, some have potential. Some are experienced veterans with great leadership skills. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are, but again, either can't stay healthy or at the tail end of their careers and really can't provide what you really need out of them. Or all of the above. Granted, there are some potential young talents, but again, it just seemed as though Tampa had more depth with who they picked, even if their careers didn't necessarily pan out in the long term. I mean, we can also blame this on the fact that Yashin's still not in the league, and at least Tampa gets their number 1 draft pick. That is a big, big factor. Also, the fact that nobody expected what was ahead for Brian Bradley to break out like he did. So maybe that's what gave Tampa the true edge, and maybe their picks weren't all that much better than the Senators, but they were still a little bit better, and the Sens were completely just out of their element. Bridgman was completely out of his element in building this team. Now, here's the thing. I think where Bridgman got his influence, and again, I only know this because I was just covering Bobby Clarke's career on this channel, is that during the 1979-80 season, it seemed as though Keith Allen and Pat Quinn were building the team with, again, minor league character players who didn't get much of a chance, but were able to add further depth to the team. That's the thing. The Flyers weren't an expansion team. They were actually a pretty good team at that point still, and they had superstars. They just needed to add a little more depth to the lower core, and it worked. They won 30. They went unbeaten in 35 games and went to the Stanley Cup final. But no, Bridgman is just using the strategy in all the wrong ways. And also, okay, poor Rick Bowness. He's a very smart man. He isn't left with much here. And I'm not trying to put down the players here who had lengthy and good careers, but this is just a disaster. And to play devil's advocate, yes, okay, again, the Lightning. Esposito, not a great GM, made bad choices as well, but seemed, again, to have a slightly more solid foundation at that time anyway to build on. But, you know, Espo gonna be Espo. But even the odds makers knew this team had literally nothing going for it. I mean, okay, obviously Tampa and Ottawa were going to be given the worst odds of winning the Cup. But Tampa, along with the sophomore San Jose Sharks, were given odds of 100,000 to 1 to win it. The Sens were given the odds of 500,000 to 1 to win it. Oh my goodness, you have a better chance of Vanilla Ice making a comeback. Also, the Sens will be placed in the Adams division, featuring perennial powerhouses, the Montreal Canadiens and Boston Bruins, as well as consistent first-round playoff dwellers, the Sabres and the Whalers. Also, the Numb Nordiques, who have been downright awful for the better part of 5 years. Maybe the Sens odds shouldn't be that bad. Well, here we are, ladies and gents. After this crazy roller coaster ride, we're ready for opening night. October 8, 1992, the Ottawa Civic Center, a packed house of 10,500 people, professional hockey returns to our nation's capital. NHL President Gil Stein is on hand for this huge evening. Awaiting them is the Montreal Canadiens, last year's first-place Adams Division winners, led by stars such as Kirk Muller and Denis Savard, and new additions adding scoring depth to the club, all-stars Vincent Damphousse and Brian Bellows. They're also led by defensemen Eric Desjardins and Matthew Schneider, and their megastar goaltender Patrick Roy. There was a very long pregame ceremony. Maybe it just felt long to me because I was 9 years old at the time, but with these, you know, there's all this stuff happening, and these weird skating dancers dressed up as, well, senators, I guess, using robotic voices that would make Peter Frampton cringe, saying, "Let's go, Senator." Ugh. And this thing just kept dragging on at the point where Montreal goaltender Patrick Roy quit. "Can we get on with this? Those goalposts aren't going to talk to themselves." Okay, well, I'm guessing that's either what he was at least thinking, or maybe even said, who knows. But we still need our Canadian national anthem to be sang in epic fashion for this momentous occasion. I believe that, again, this is important. So who will they get? Well, how about Corey Hart? His name may not generate the buzz it did in the 80s, but hey, his new stuff was still being played on radio very consistently, and he's a name. But nah, he's a Habs fan for life, baby. Oh, hey, how about Celine Dion? Got a hell of a voice. Her star was really beginning to grow internationally, but nah, Habs fan for life, baby. Okay, all kidding aside. Obviously, if you throw enough money at any of them, I'm sure they'll do it. But let's look further. Again, two very popular artists at the time were Bryan Adams and Tom Cochrane. Both were very much Canadian as you can get when it came to their music and even some of their personality traits. Adams was a worldwide star right in the wave of his successful sixth album, Waking Up the Neighbors, while Cochrane had 7 top 40 hits in Canada on his most recent album, Mad Mad World, including the worldwide smash hit, Life is a Highway. And he sang a very iconic hockey song, Big League, back in 1988. But now it won't be them. Okay, moving on. Well, maybe they want a female star. Lana Miles was best known, of course, across the world for Black Velvet, but she was still making hit songs in Canada, was actually coming off a recent #1 hit. Well, how about Katie Lang? Yeah, she just had an album reach both critical and commercial success, and man, she can belt out a tune. Or if you want a little more sass, Sass Jordan was very popular in Canada at the time. No, not them either. Okay. Oh, okay, well, maybe they want a popular band, right? Oh, Bare Naked Ladies. I mean, for the past year at this point, they've been all over Much Music at the time. They were a great success story, and their popular has been skyrocketing in the last year. Or the Tragically Hip, all over Canadian rock and top 40 radio, and Much Music as well. Gord Downey is a tried and true hockey fan. Or Blue Rodeo. They are running a massive wave of success, and the harmonies between Cuddy and Keeler singing our national anthem would be to die for. No? Really? Okay. Maybe the hip-hop sound is what they're looking for. And hey, the Canadian hip-hop scene was actually really good in the late 80s and early 90s. Maestro Fresh West was a huge name on the scene and was still releasing some really good work and was on Much Music's Rap City. So were the Dream Warriors. They had a unique fusion sound using jazz. And then there was MCJ and Cool G from the East Coast. Okay, well that one's a personal favorite. I mean, So Listen is a kick-ass tune. And hey, how about Organized Rhyme led by Tom Green? Yes, that Tom Green. And hey, he's from Ottawa. And look, he's sporting Senator swag already. No. Just forget I said it. Forget it. Hey, wait. I know. They want someone a little more of iconic stature. And they don't get much more iconic than Neil Young. Love him or hate him, you can't dispute his popularity. And he was on the verge of releasing a huge album in Harvest Moon. Hey, Gordon Lightfoot, noted hockey fan, still a very beloved figure across the country. Geddy Lee, yes, Rush, popular all over the world, one of the biggest touring acts, and they were hot off the success of their album Roll the Bones, for better or worse. He'd be a great choice. Or hey, Anne Murray, proud Canadian gal, she can do us proud with a great rendition. Joni Mitchell, forever an icon, could give a very stirring rendition. Burton Cummings, another big hockey fan, he can bring the house down. Not them either, eh? Well, at least Geddy got the show his love for his homeland with Terrence and Phillip on that South Park soundtrack there, buddy. Okay, hey, how about the reliable radio rockers that are beloved in Canada? These guys are forever in the hearts of Canadian dock parties and barbecues everywhere. Ron McGuire from Trooper, Miles Goodwin from Maple Wine, Rick Evan from Triumph, who, by the way, was still actually making solo hits on the charts, Johnny D from Honeymoon Suite, or Kim Mitchell, who just had one of the biggest hits of his career, a song oddly enough called America. But no, neither of them either? Oh, I got it. Sarah McLachlan or Bruce Cockburn. Sarah was already very heavily popular, and Bruce was still putting out radio hits. On second thought, Bruce would likely be late because his bike caught a flat, and I've heard Sarah sing out Canada, and it honestly made me depressed to be Canadian. See also Cohen Leonard, Robertson Robbie. Oh man, we're running out of options here. Oh, okay, Barney Bentall, Dan Hill, Mark Holmes from Platinum Blonde, Mike Reno from Loverboy. Hey, he could belt it out with a belly and all. Alan Frew from Glass Tiger, Lawrence Gowan, still very popular here. Carol Pope from Rough Trade, she was pretty badass. None of them either, eh? Okay, Jane Seabury, Paul Hyde from the Paolas, Aldo Nova, Gordon Debbie from the Spoons, Mitsu, Sue Medley, Andy Kim, aka Baron Longfellow. None of them? Oh, yeesh. Okay, Alfie Zappacosta, Lisa Del Billo, Freddie Kirchie from Sheriff and Alias, whoever's the lead singer of Frozen Ghost, Nash the Slash, Carl Dixon from Coney Hatch, Kenny Shields from Streetheart, Michael Sadler from Saga, Ron Tabak from Prism, Annie Hollywoods from Toronto, Lorraine Segato from the Parachute Club, Maureen McLaughlin, Valdi, Candy, Klaatu, Ian and Sylvia, the Poppy Family, the Puka Orchestra, Christopher Ward, Fred Penner, Raffi, Red, Green, and Harold, Ed the Sock? No. They went with the Alanis. Yes, that Alanis. Okay. Yeah, before she was the queen of angst and anger, she was the queen of the YTV hit list. Okay, before you Morissette mongrels get on my case, this was still a year or two before she went down on a sitcom star in a theater, allegedly. But she made pop music at this time so bad that she made New Kids on the Block look like the Rolling Stones. Her videos were even worse, one of which featured Matt LeBlanc about a few years before Relevance, and known as, hey, it's the doofus who had 2 failed spin-offs from Married with Children. But Alanis? I still think Candy would have been the better choice. Okay, to be fair, Alanis did fine. But was she really the best choice? I mean, at this time, maybe the Sens came along 3 years later, I could definitely agree with this. But, really, Tom Green wasn't available? Well, anyway. But the thing is, they missed the obvious choice. Duh, Stompin' Tom. The man sings the most iconic song about hockey ever. The hockey song. Everyone knows the hockey song. Even my teenage sister, who does not watch sports, knows the hockey song. He could have sang that and the national anthem. Tom was to play music. He loves hockey. He's famous. He's not very high-priced. Damn you, Bruce Firestone. Damn, where's the Tylenol? Okay, off to the actual game now. The game is being broadcast all across Canada on Hockey Night in Canada on CBC. And now, let's get ready for this big moment. So in the Sens lineup, forwards, team captain Laurie Boschman, Sylvain Turgeon, Jamie Baker, Neil Brady, Mark Fortier, Jody Hull, Thomas Jelinek, Mark Lamb, Darcy Lowen, Andrew McBain, Mike Peluso, and Doug Schmale. Defense, Norm McIver, Brad Shaw, Ken Hammond, Chris Luongo, Mark Osieski, and Darren Rumble. Brad Marsh is out of the game. Peter Sidorkiewicz gets to start in net. So here we go. The game is underway. 31 seconds in, the first penalty in Sens history is served by Ken Hammond. Holding the stick, by the way. There's a lot of stick-holding penalties in this game. They gave the Habs 3 power plays not even halfway through the period, but the Sens penalty kill was actually doing pretty good here. Sens are playing a much better game and much smarter overall. And after that, they got some good chances on Patrick Waugh, but the Star was turning them back. P-Sid was also playing very well on the other end. The Sens were actually frustrating the Habs very smartly, I might add, who were starting to take bad penalties themselves, but the Sens couldn't capitalize. It was scoreless after 1. But this crowd loves their Sens, and this crowd is rabid and cheering hard. But now, going into the second period, still in their 4th power play of the game, the Sens are moving the puck nicely. McIver shoots it in where Jody Hull, side of the net, sees Neil Brady, who slips it past Patrick Waugh, and the place erupts. The first goal in Senators history, a power play marker, indeed from Neil Brady, assisted by Jody Hull and Norm McIver. 26 seconds into the second period, and the Sens lead the Habs 1-0. Brady was apparently looking very good in practice leading up to the game, so hey, there you go. He was prepared to make history. The Sens put more pressure on the Habs and trying to extend their lead. Then just past the midway point of the period, Doug Schmale scores an assist from Mark Fortier and leads the game 2-0, and the Civic Center is shaking. But the Habs, they get one back just 32 seconds later on a goal from Mike Keane. Cutting the gap to 2-1, but then just over 5 minutes later, Lamb and Baker set up Ken Hammond for a goal to make it 3-1 Ottawa, restoring the 2-goal lead, and that's how it would stay after 2 periods. The Habs, however, get one back as a Vincent Damphousse goal. The game stayed tightly knit. The Sens, to their credit, were playing a very smart game here. Time was winding down, and the Sens were on the power play. Hull, and back to Rumble, up to Sylvain Turgeon. With 2:09 remaining, the Sens take a 4-2 lead. But then with time winding down with under a minute to play, the Habs stay alive with 29 seconds to play on a Brian Bellows goal. But Doug Schmale seals the deal with his second goal of the game, an empty netter with 15 seconds left. As even the camera starts shaking due to the crowd's enthusiasm, the Ottawa Senators win their first game 5-3 over a stacked Montreal Canadiens club. Doug Schmale's 2 goals gives him first star honors, while Jody Hull had 2 assists, giving him the second star. The third star goes to the man who scored the franchise's first goal, Neil Brady. Also, Norm McIver played very well. Peter Sidorkiewicz was good in net. Great start for the Sens. Maybe this team has been underestimated as they get ready for a 5-game road trip. Bring on the sucky, or not so sucky Nordiques. Yikes! The Sens are throttled 9-2 as Brad Marsh makes his debut. The Sens gave up 4 power play goals and a shorthander. Steve Weeks in his first start is bombarded, 5 goals in 2 periods. P-Sid comes in, fares no better, 4 goals in 1 period on 13 shots. They hit Hextall with 29 shots, so they were trying to get at him. Sakic, Nolan, and Young just decimated them. But after a disaster like that, I can only go up from here, right? I couldn't even say that with a straight face. Nah. Next up was Bork Oates and the powerful Bruins. Forward Lonnie Loach, defenseman Brad Miller, and winger Jim Thompson are activated as McBain, Marsh, and Fortier are out. The Bruins did take a 3-0 lead, but the Sens, to their credit, made a game of it, closing the gap to 3-2. But ultimately, they would lose 6-3. Great games, however, from Peluso and Brady, who had 2 goals and 2 assists, respectively. Then against the Whalers, Brad Shaw returns. Then the Sens put up barely any fight whatsoever against the Slowly Cub and lose 4-1. Turgeon with the lone goal. They looked worse against Washington. Boschman and Lowen are out. Loach is back, so is McBain, and Mark Freer makes his Senators debut, scoring the lone goal in a 5-1 loss. This team really had no drive at all, it seemed, even for an expansion team they had in their debut. Then it was off to Hamilton, Ontario, to face Dougie, Wendy, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. More lineup shuffles. Rob Murphy makes his debut. Fortier is out. The Sens actually put up quite a fight here. They actually scored the first goal of the game, but they did trail 3-1 after 2 periods. They didn't give up, however, but would lose 5-3. Neil Brady, a huge night. A goal, 2 assists, and was second star of the game. Still, though, overall, not a very good road trip other than a solid game against the Leafs and a spirited effort against the Bruins. There was nothing to write home about here as they go 0-5-0 on their first road trip. But hey, they're returning home for a 3-game homestand, and the losing streak is extended to 8. As again, the Whalers proved to be their biggest kryptonite. Not only did they lose 5-1, goalies Peason and Weeks give up 5 goals on 17 shots, and Yelenick and Lamb are quite bad here too. Baker gets the lone goal. Then it's Mark Messier, Mike Gardner, and last year's top regular season team, President Trophy winners, the New York Rangers, coming at them. Brad Marsh returns to the lineup and actually plays a really good game. And the Sens as a whole here actually play excellently. Despite being down 2-0 after a period, they make a comeback. First with a Chris Luongo goal, and with 5:32 to play, Bradshaw also scores his first goal of the year on a power play to tie the game. And they have been bombarding the Rangers netminder Mike Richter here, but again, it's Mike Richter. They look like they might get the tie, but no, 11 seconds left in OT. Phil Bourque makes the Sens lose a heartbreaker. They were also without Turgeon in this game, I should add. And yeah, we have the Mario Lemieux show and the 2-time defending Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins in town, and they're going to give Ottawa fans a show as they down their Sens 7-2. McIver had 2 assists, and despite the score here, the Sens actually did try hard. But again, it's the Penguins. It's 1992 against an expansion team. Turgeon, however, was brutal in his return. Then it was off to start a home-and-home series in Buffalo. Steve Weeks gets his second start of the year, and ouch! 12-3 they lose? This was basically a glorified all-star game for the Sabres. Literally, LaFontaine, 5 points, Howardchuk, 4, McGillney, 3, Anderchuk, 2. Bob Sweeney even had 3 points. He only had 20 all of last year. And Victor Gordiuk had 4 points? Victor Gordiuk? Victor Gordiuk? I don't even know who that is! Wait. Oh, what? Oh, yes, Google. Duh. Silly me. Victor Gordiuk. Okay. Well, okay, he was playing well up to this point, I guess. It was his first NHL season. He only played 60 more games in the NHL after this and scored 2 points? Really, Steve? Victor Gordiuk. And speaking of Steve Weeks, he let in 11 of the 12 goals. A game so bad he should be sent to the minors. Oh, actually he was. Ouch. Okay. Not going to feel bad. But, okay, on the other side of the coin, what was Rick Bowness thinking? Sure, we're still in the high-scoring era, but goalies are getting better. Did he go to the Mario Tremblay seminar for coaching even before Tremblay coached the game? Ugh, poor Steve Weeks. Isn't the only one, however, to blame. Luongo, despite scoring a goal, was awful. McIver was also pretty bad, as was Doug Smale. Buffalo players had this to say after the game. Hamilton, Ontario native Dave Anderchuk said, "I thought the Dukes of Hamilton folded." Goaltender Dominic Hasek said, "Wow, I've never really taken a siesta during a game before." Pat LaFontaine then said, "I really want to win a Lady Byng this year, so I stopped at 5 points." Sens players expressed their thoughts too. Team captain Laurie Boschman said, "Just 52 more games until I reach my 1,000th. I can do this!" Doug Smale then said, "Dale, I really miss you, man." And goalie Steve Weeks then said, "They're going to send me to New Haven and I don't even live there." GM Mel Bridgman said, "This is inexcusable. When I played for the Devils, we'd score at least 4 goals if we let in that much in a game. Get it together, boys." Then on a phone call with Mario Tremblay, Rick Bowness had this to say, "Oh, I was supposed to pull him after 9 goals, of course. Oh, thanks, Mario. You're going to be a great coach one day." Okay, well, I have no proof any of that took place. It would make a lot of sense if it did. Anyway, the Sens have to head back home to face the very team that just embarrassed them, the Sabres, and indeed this takes place on Halloween night. And the Sabres are up 2-0 barely 6 minutes into this thing. But then something happened. Peter Sudorkiewicz decided to come to the game dressed as Patrick Waugh for Halloween, and begun to bar the door. Then late in the period on a power play, Hull to Turgeon to Baker. The Sens are on the board, and 2 minutes later, the trio teamed up again as Turgeon and Baker set up Hull. It's 2-2 after 1, and then 2-2 after 2. Peason is playing great in that, but so is Darren Pupa of Buffalo. Yes, that's his actual name. Then it's 2-2 after 3, and is it true? Did it really happen as we go to overtime? The Ottawa Senators didn't lose! They tied the Sabres 2-2, breaking their 9-game losing streak, and are now simply winless in 10. And hey, the Sens decided to celebrate Halloween dressed as a decent expansion team to end the month. Wow. Well, hey, opening night was great, wasn't it? Yeah. 1-9-1 to start the year in the month of October, but hey, just 3 points behind the Whalers for what would be a respectable 5th place finish. In the Whalers' 3 wins, 2 of them were against the Sens. Yeah, it's really early still, but despite great fan support, the constant roster changes, which I will say is not uncommon as you might think for a struggling team, let alone an expansion team, means the Sens haven't really found the lineup they're going for yet. They've used 24 skaters this month, which wasn't too bad. Some was due to injury, but a lot was just being jumbled around more than anything. And they're only scoring barely above 2.25 goals a game. The Lightning were actually averaging a whole goal more, and actually were slightly better. The Sharks, who are every bit as bad as this team, were actually averaging slightly better too, yet are still bad, nearly 2.5 goals. Defenseman Norm McIver, however, did average a point a game with a goal, 10 assists for 11 points, living up to his role in this team as their scoring defenseman, and led the team as a whole in scoring all month. Sylvain Turgeon started off, but cooled down a little, then turned it up again as the month progressed. But he still scored 4 goals, 4 assists for 8 points in 10 games, second in team scoring. Jody Hull and Neil Brady, the latter of whom, of course, scored the first Senators goal, each had 2 goals and 5 assists for 7 points to tie for third in team scoring. The rest of this forward core, well, you acquire guys who played on bad teams, it ain't going to get much better. Despite a great opening night, Doug Smale has been ineffective and was a -11 to boot. Team captain Laurie Boschman, well, the less said the better. Andrew McBain, even less said the better. Mark Lamb, hey, he was still a hustler out there. Mike Peluso, of all people, proved to be one of the better forwards on this club. Thomas Jelinek, the Czech superstar, is basically a pylon out there. -10. Jamie Baker was okay some nights. Part-timers, 48 Murphy, Thompson, and Loach were, Lowen was at least entertaining. Moving on. Forward Mark Freer only played in 3 games, but was an even 0 and played reasonably well in those games, as he was the only player to play in more than 1 game and not be in the minus. Of course, McIver led all defensemen in scoring, as you already know, and to his credit, he was a workhorse. Grizzled vet Brad Marsh in the 5 games he played was solid. However, Ken Hammond was abysmal most nights. Brad Shaw played good in some games. Chris Luongo gave up more goals than Roberto did on his worst nights. Brad Miller was meh. Osiecki was double meh. Darren Rumble was slightly above meh on some nights. And to the goalies, oh, those poor goalies. Peter Sidorkiewicz started 9 games, but appeared in all 11 this month. At least he won 1. No, and tied another. He's won 7-1 with a 4.46 goals against average and an .844 save percentage. Stats that would actually make Greg Millen laugh. Oh, but hey, that's Vezina material compared to Steve Weeks. 2 starts, lost them both, didn't even finish any of the other games, including that 11 goals allowed against Buffalo and a goals against average of 8.3. Oh! A save percentage of .778. Earning him a trip to the minor leagues and a nickname Steve the Strainer Weeks. Hell, P-Sid was Vezina and Hart Trophy material compared to him. And yeah, to be fair, P-Sid actually played a couple really good games. With a little bit of momentum on their side with the hard-fought tie against the Buffalo Sabres, they headed west for their first Western road trip, and on November 3rd, 1992, standing in their way was a gutted and lowly Oilers squad. Gone were the glory days, but the Oilers still had talents such as Bernie Nichols, Scott Mellenby, Peter Klima, Craig McTavish, and Dave Manson. But the Sens find themselves down 4-0 as this Oilers team just takes them apart. They try for a comeback, but end up losing 4-2 despite a goal and assist each from McIver and Baker. But we interrupt this slew of suck to bring you a special news bulletin. The Ottawa Senators make a trade on November 5th. They send a 5th-round draft pick to the New York Rangers in exchange for Dave Archibald. Now, Archibald was originally a first-round draft pick for the Minnesota North Stars back in 1987, 6th overall. But his NHL career has pretty much been a bust. Now, the North Stars may have been a subpar team, but they were actually pretty good at developing some talents. He never really evolved in any way. And in 181 games, he had 30 goals, 47 assists for 77 points. Also, this was including in time being traded to the Rangers during the 1989-90 season. He spent 19 games with the club, last playing in the NHL on December 12, 1989, nearly 3 years ago. But he did have a really good season in the IHL that year with the Flint Spirits with 52 points in 41 games. But he has spent the prior 2 seasons playing extremely well with Canada's national team, scoring 39 goals, 55 assists for 94 points in 87 games. He's also one of the best players on Team Canada in the 92 Winter Olympics, winning the silver medal, Canada's first medal in over 20 years. He also had a brief stint in the Italian League that year. He also won a silver at the 1991 World Championships, and has played 8 games so far for the AHL's Binghamton Rangers, where he has 9 points in 8 games. Look, The Sens getting a decorated international player isn't exactly the worst thing for them. But as an expansion team, you should be acquiring draft picks, not giving them up. And I'm sorry, I no disrespect to Dave Archibald. As a kid, I remember how great he was in the Olympics. But you're sacrificing a piece of your future for a guy who, I'm sorry, is not going to shake things up. Even at the time, this wasn't seen as a good deal. Mr. Bridgman. See, this is where taking the risk of offering future considerations might have been a good idea. Anyway, we now return to your regularly scheduled, huge, embarrassing failure. Dorkowitz played poorly, as did Shaw, Rumble, and Lamb. But hey, the Sens managed to score 4 goals against the revamped Flames team, who then score 8. As minor league call-up Darren Madeley gets the start, he doesn't finish, letting in 6. Hey, Rick is learning. Hull played really well with the goal and a helper. Shaw had 2 apples himself. McIver was brutal, and Marsh is out again. The Sens put up, however, a spirited effort against Pavel Bure and the Canucks, as they do hit Kirk McLean with 27 shots, and McIver gets the lone goal, however, in a 4-1 loss, where Dave Archibald made a Senators debut, as, well, Boschman, Brady, and Osiek are out, and Marsh returns, Thompson, Miller, Murphy are in the lineup. Madeley got the start, and he's actually the first backup goalie in Senators history to finish a game, but let in 4 goals on 23 shots. They are now winless in 13. They return home to face 2 fellow Canadian clubs who are actually shockingly both very good this year, exceeding expectations. First, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Rumble in, Miller out. The Sens play a solid game here. They actually hit Felix Potvin with 37 shots, but he only lets one in. The Sens lose 3-1. But Sidorkowitz actually played really well in net, stopping 27 shots, and Doug Smale probably played his best game since opening night. But after a string of at least showing up for these games, their defensive goaltending lets them down in a 7-3 loss against the Quebec Nordiques. Turgeon, Lowen, and Hull get the goals in that one. Boschman again out. Brady returns. Baker played awful. Fortier played so bad he never played another game for the Ottawa and was sent to the minors. This now brings them winless streak to 15 games. However, they head to Tampa Bay to face their expansion counterparts, the Lightning. At this point, the Bolts were actually having a really good year, going into this game with 8 wins. Jeff Lazaro and Donovan Lavoie make their debuts for the Senators, and the Sens are a very focused bunch here, as they fire a barrage of shots at Pat Jablonski, but he's turning everything back. Heasid makes some great stops too, but Brian Bradley gets past him for a goal. The Sens defense is actually playing a solid game here as well, but they just can't stop Jablonski. He stops all 38 shots. Ottawa loses 1-0. And then the winless streak hits 17. After a visit to Philadelphia, 7-2 loss to the Flyers, where Heaton allowed 7 goals on 27 shots, and was the victim of rookie sensation Eric Lindros' first career hat trick. Not to mention Mark Recchi having a 5.9. Can it get any worse? Well, maybe not. It's the Montreal Canadiens, the only team they beat this year, on opening night, visiting them again. This gives the media and the fans hope, confidence, and it looks really good. In the first period, the Sens lead 2-0 after goals from Lazaro and Peluso. The Habs get one back, however, but in the second, the Sens are putting up the red light on Rasico in net, and it's 3-1. So Dorkowitz, however, couldn't take the bombardment. The Habs win it 5-3. Oddly enough, the score they were beaten by the Sens on opening night. And there's plenty more where this came from. Yes, there were more divisional battles on the way. The Whalers win their 5th game, and 3rd against the Sens, 4-2. The Sens again showing some drive here, but Sean Burke is a wall in net for the Whalers. Turgeon and McBain get the goals as Captain Boschman returns. McIver is a brutal -4. Then it's another loss to the Habs, this time in Montreal. Rasico stopped 29 Senator shots. Baker gets the lone goal, and the winless streak hits 20. But then they really put up a fight, however, against the Bruins. No, I'm not even trying to be cute. Storkowitz is hit by a firing squad, 41 shots. Peluso plays great when they lose 3-2 at home. The Sens have now become the 9th team in NHL history to go 20 games without a win. They are now in a 3-way tie with the 1943-44 Rangers and 1950-51 Blackhawks with 21 games without a win, tied for 4th worst streak, I should say, of all time. The actual worst streak is the 1980-81 Jets, who hold the record with 30, and I've covered them on this channel. Many experts believe this Sens squad will break it. Things didn't look much easier, however, on November 25th, 1992, as the team was set to host a rising New Jersey Devils club, as they were bolstered by superstar defenseman Scott Stevens, as well as rookie blue liner Scott Niedermayer. Up front, they had talents like Claude Lemieux, Stéphane Richer, and Peter Stastny. But yet, nearly 30 seconds into the game, Andrew McBain sends in Mike Peluso for a goal, and the Sens are up 1-0 early on, but the Devils tied. It's 1-1 after 1. But 24 seconds into the second period, Paluso scores his second of the game, set up by Boschman and McBain, the latter getting his second helper of the game. The Sens lead 2-1. Peace is playing excellently in goal, and they carry that lead into the second intermission. Can they do it? The Sens are hanging on as best they can, and near the midway point of the period, however, Jamie Baker scores. 3-1 Ottawa. Could it be true? Tie counts down. 1 minute to play. The Civic Center is rocking like it did on opening night. 30 seconds. The place is shaking. Oh my goodness. 10 seconds. Is the fairy tale coming to life? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Ottawa Senators win their second game of the year. 3-1 over the New Jersey Devils. Huge games from Paluso and McBain. Huge game from Sidorkiewicz and net. Wow! Truly a moment to remember. The Sens players were interviewed after the game, and they had this to say. Andrew McBain said, "Best game I've had since I scored 3 points back when the Oilers beat us 12-7 in '86. I equaled Gretzky that night." Mike Paluso said, "Would have been better if I'd punched Scott Stevens too." And goalie Peter Sidorkiewicz said, "So when do we get our rings for this?" Well, Coach Rick Bowness expressed his happiness by saying, "I hereby announce my candidacy for the Jack Adams Trophy as Coach of the Year." General Manager Mel Bridgman was very happy, also saying, "Free eyebrow wax and mini Commissar, everyone!" Okay, I can't back any of these up, but just have to imagine how joyful this bunch was. And the joy was short-lived. They dropped a home-and-home series with the Sabres, first losing on the road 4-1 despite launching a barrage of shots at Darren Pupa. Baker with the lone goal in that one. Then they lose by 3 goals again, 5-2 at home this time. Turgeon and Shaw the goals. Peace plays very badly in net. Jim Kite was activated for the first time this year in this game. Well, hey, that dreaded winless streak is over, and again they tie their franchise record of 1 straight win. 13-0 for November. And although the team played with a bit more passion and spirit this one, 27 different skaters were used, and again, that's still kind of understandable this time of year, and there were a few injuries, but Bowness still can't find the lineup he wants, and neither can Bridgman, which is, again, is somewhat understandable. But now they're averaging less than 2 goals a game. And again, by comparison, the Lightning were averaging over 3.5, and yeah, they were having a better year, but the Sharks, who are pretty much every bit as bad as this team, were averaging 3 a game on the dot. Jamie Baker and Norm McIver tied the team lead in scoring in November. Baker actually played many big games this month. 5 goals for assists for 9 points. Nobody on the Sens averaged a point a game this month. McIver has been their most consistent scorer so far this season. 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points this month. But his actual defensive play has come somewhat under fire, but he's played many a big night. Same for Leonard Bradshaw, who was third in team scoring with 2 goals, 6 assists for 8 points, and was a -13 playing all but 1 game this month. Pretty crazy to think that the Senators launched several shots on goal this month, but barely anything went into the net. Turgeon had a terrible month. Holt was okay on some nights. Dave Archibald isn't playing bad since arriving, but isn't really doing all that much to stand out. Andrew McBain was actually surprisingly solid this month. Even Boschman played decently some nights. Brady and Lamb, however, struggled greatly. Smale was being scratched in the lineup either due to health or inconsistency. Paluso again was solid. How is Yelenick not getting scratched in the lineup at all? He's still basically a pylon out there. Part-timers Freer and Murphy were Jeff Lazaro actually showed some spark, and hey, Lowen's still fun to watch. So, of course, again, McIver leads all defensemen in scoring, and while he did play excellent on many nights, I'd have to say the best overall defenseman was the helmetless wonder, the veteran Brad Marsh. Still doing what he's always done and doing it very well. Hammond also played pretty decently on some nights. Osiecki and Rumble did not play decently much at all. I mentioned Shaw, he was hit or miss, but again, played some great games to his credit. The part-timers, less said the better. I also mentioned how Andrew McBain, the forward, had a pretty decent month, and he led all Senators players in plus-minus with, hey, an even 0. This team, you can't complain. To those poor goalies. Peter Sidorkiewicz again gets the Sens' only win this month, but he again lost 11. Played pretty good on some nights, terribly on others, but not always his fault. But he played some excellent games, including the tight loss to Boston as well as the win over the Devils. His goals against average actually improved this month to a 3.94, as he again started 11 games but appeared in 12. His save percentage improved slightly to an .857. Minor league call-up Darren Medley in the only games he would play this season was not good. 0-2-0, but still had a better goals against average than Steve Weeks with his 6.67. but his .773 save percentage is actually worse. So, of course, Madeley gets sent back down to New Haven, and Weeks is called back up for the holiday season. Oh, Merry Christmas. The month of December began with their third straight loss, 3-1 to the Minnesota North Stars. P-Sid played well in net, and Jelinek gets the only goal of the game. 2 days later, they again play host to New Jersey Devils, one of the two teams they've beaten so far this year. Again, that gives a lot of hope to the Sens faithful in the first period, and P-Sid is playing marvelously in net, as the Devils are a firing squad. But at the midway point of the period, Boschman and Baker sub Jody Hall to make it 1-0. And speaking of one, with 1 second left in the period on a power play, Hall goes back to work, setting up Norm MacIver to make it 2-0 after one. Sidorkiewicz is standing on his head, but can't hold him out much longer. The Devils do tie it with both a shorthander and a power play goal. But Luongo flips the puck up to Archibald, who sets up Baker. It's 3-2 Sens after 2. Could it happen again? Not this time. But the Sens do get a 3-3 tie. Great game from Hull and Baker as Sidorkiewicz stopped 40 shots. Another big effort from the Sens. But can they carry that effort into their next game on December 5th against a very wishy-washy and inconsistent Flyers team who did embarrass them 7-2 in their prior meeting, but the Flyers are without Lindros in this game. Nearly 5 minutes in, Philly strikes first, but then on the power play, Lamb gets it over to Turgeon, who magnificently sets up Archibald. His first goal of the season, his first goal as a Senator. It remains tied 1-1 after one. Philly's defense isn't giving the Sens much going, but the Flyers do get one in the second. The Sens trail 2-1 after 2. But it was over 3 minutes into the third. Shaw and Rumble begin to rush at least a stick of Laurie Boschman. The captain gets it. It's tied 2-2. Just under 2 minutes later, Jamie Baker takes a loose puck and makes a beautiful solo effort and becomes the first Senators player to reach 10 goals. And they lead 3-2, but can they do it? P-Sid's making big saves. 10 minutes remaining. The Sens are playing very smart here. 5 minutes left. The Flyers are getting chances but can't capitalize. 1 minute to play. The Civic Center is shaking. The very foundation is rumbling. 30 seconds. Break out the champagne. 10 seconds. Do you believe in miracles? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The Ottawa Senators win their third game of the year. A 3-2 triumph over the Flyers. A huge effort from everyone on the ice that night. Now the Senators set a new franchise record for longest unbeaten streak. 2. A moment so momentous that tearful Prime Minister Brian Mulroney said, "A great day for Canada and for the world." Well, okay, maybe he didn't say that, but he was thinking it for sure. But now the question is, can the Sens extend this streak? They've been playing quite well in this homestand. In the final game of this homestand, they host the Washington Capitals, who so far this season have been quite inconsistent. They are led, however, by the fearless leader known as Dale Hunter, as well as ally Afraidy on defense and veteran goalie Dom Beaupre in net. And the Sens fans are excited as another packed house at the Civic Center is ready. But it was bad early on. Starkowitz was lit up like Charlie Sheen on hiatus. 4-0 Caps in the first period, but wait. Freer sets up Lazaro to get the fans moving a bit again, and Turgeon scores a great solo effort to cut the gap to 4-2 after 1. The Sens have momentum on their side, but P-Sid is done for the night, and Steve Weeks takes over. Okay, to be fair, Weeks doesn't play terrible, but the Caps go up 5-2, and they stay that way after 2 periods, and this is bad. The Caps go up 6-2 in the third. You can hear a pin drop in the Civic Center, but 1 minute later, Turgeon scores his second goal of the game. The lead just got to 6-3. Then less than a minute later after that, the former duo of Jets strike. Boschman sets up McBain. It's 6-4. The fans have woken up again. The Sens are pressing hard and are going to many lengths they can to get the comeback. And with 6:14 left, Turgeon finds open Jelinek, who scores a goal. The arena erupts at 6-5. The Sens press and press. They pull Weeks for the extra attacker. And do you believe in miracles? Well, yes, but it didn't take place on this night. Kudos to the Sens for their never-say-die attitude in this one, however, in their near comeback. But they lose 6-5. A huge 3-point night for Turgeon. Jelinek plays the best he's played all year. Lamb also played very well, but alas, it was not to be. It would begin a 3-game losing streak. Overworked P-Sid gets some much-needed rest, but the string of great games come to an end as, again, Hartford owns Ottawa 6-2 as Terry Yake takes the Sens apart. Mark Freer did score both goals, McBain assisting on both of them. PCID returns and stops 33 shots, and again the Sens seem to be motivated whenever they play Boston. They were down 2-0 but tied the game on goals from McIver and Turgeon, but they lose 4-2. But hey, the Sens get another tie, this time against Fleury, Roberts, Nieuwendyk, and the Powerful Flames. It was a 1-1 tie, and both goals came quick. Theo Fleury got one for the Flames midway through the second period, but just 48 seconds later on the power play, Lamb back to Shaw, and Turgeon in front of the net scores. PCID is excellent in net once again in a game that saw 65 penalty minutes. But the Sens didn't back down, a really gritty and tremendous effort here. We interrupt this mid-mediocrity to bring you a breaking news story. The Ottawa Senators have signed a new free agent goaltender on December the 15th. Daniel Berthilm, who's spent 6 seasons in the NHL, has joined the club after spending some time in Austria this year. His career is best known for getting off to a hot start in Winnipeg alongside fellow goaltender Pokey Reddick, as they were known as Pokey and the Bandit, very popular with Jets fans. He followed up his rookie year with a very good sophomore year, but had a really bad third season as the Jets were plummeting as a whole, and then in the 89-90 season he was traded to Minnesota where he played a little better, but then he had a huge rebound year in 1990-91 in Los Angeles for the Kings, but got off to a bad start in 91-92 and was traded to Boston and didn't fare much better. Either way, Berthilm's NHL record is very respectable, 79-73-20, with a 3.58 goals against average and an 8.79 save percentage. We now return you to your regularly scheduled exhausting expansion team. But they lose 4 more, bringing their winless streak to 8. They did take the fight to the powerful Red Wings, however, led by a red-hot, easy for me to say, led by a red-hot Stevie Yzerman. The Sens had the lead twice, 1-0 and 2-1. But it was tied up to regulation, but Fedorov stuck in the dagger with an OT goal, which prompted Wing star forward Dino Ciccarelli to state, "That was too close. Any closer, I would have rammed my stick up Turgeon's nose." Then it was off to Long Island to face a very inconsistent Islanders club led by Sylvan's superstar brother, Pierre Turgeon. But hey, Sylvan had a goal and assist and stays hot, but Pierre had 2 goals and a 9-3 Islanders thumping. An unruly Islanders fan yelled out, "It's obvious where all the talent in that family went." Yes, Steve Weeks was in net for the first period, was pulled up to 4 goals. PCID to finish the game didn't fare any better, and for poor Steve Weeks, this was his 291st and final NHL game. He'd go back to New Haven and eventually retire from hockey in February. Luongo was awful. Marsh was worse. Then it was on the road against the Leafs, where the Sens put up another pathetic effort as PCID plays piss poor. Leafs captain Wendell Clark said after the game, "Always wondered what 5-1 would look like from our side." We interrupt this terrible trail to bring you another breaking news update. The Sens have made a trade on December 19th. They have parted with part-timers Jim Thompson and Mark Fortier to the Los Angeles Kings in exchange for sizable center Bob Kudelski. And by God, this proves the theory right that a blind mouse does find a piece of cheese once in a while, because Mel Bridgman did good here. Kudelski has played parts of 6 seasons in LA and is a steady 20-goal scorer. He has reached the mark the last 3 straight seasons. His career minus 31 is again not going to help matters on this team, but the Sens need goals. 15 games with the Kings, he had 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points, so minus 3 this season. Thompson and Fortier would only play a combined 15 games to the Kings. Kudos, Mel. Kudos. We now return you to your regularly scheduled losing streak. Then they hosted the Washington Capitals, where Bob Kudelski would make his debut, and the Sens had a 3-2 lead. As Brady and Shaw were playing excellently, but they let it slip and lose 4-3. And then goalie Don Beaupre said, quote, "Thank God I don't play for Ottawa." The losing streak continued to end the month. First, a 4-2 loss to Jeremy Roenick, Chris Chelios, Ed Belfour, and the hot Blackhawks. Brady and Lazaro with the goals in that one. Daniel Berthilm then gets his first start as a Senator in net against the Nordiques on the road. He is bombarded with 38 shots, and the Sens lose 4-2 despite leading 2-0 after 1. Mark Freer scores the first shorthanded goal in Senators history. And Berthilm gets the start again against the Nordiques at home, but plays badly this time, letting in 6 goals. Sakic and Duchesne gave him a rough night. Kudelski getting his first goals as Senator on this night. And then on New Year's Eve, again took the fight to the Red Wings. Despite being down 4-1 in the third, they made a great comeback as goals from Lazaro, Archibald, and Turgeon tied the game. But in overtime, after just 28 seconds in, Sheldon Kennedy won it for the Red Wings as the winless streak hits 12 to end the month. Well, hey, 1-12-2 for December, a franchise record of 4 points in a month, and a 2-game unbeaten streak. Way to go, boys. Okay, snarky comments aside, the Sens did play in some excellent outings, especially at the beginning of the month. The team still struggles to find an identity, even for an expansion team, I have to say, in that context. There's still really no solid foundation to build on. And the Sens drastically improved their scoring, however, averaging just over 3 goals per game. Actually outdoing the Lightning this month, edging out their 3 goals on the dot per game. But the Sharks, who only won 1 game all month as well, actually averaged more than 3.5 a game. But they had a lot of problems with their goaltending. As weird as it is to say, this is the best month the Sens have had. And indeed, after a rough November, Sylvain Turgeon has come back to life. 7 goals, 5 assists for 12 points, and an even 0, leading the Sens in scoring this month, and playing quite consistently. Norm McIver, who led the team in scoring twice in the prior months, comes in second with 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points, missing 1 game. Himself was an even 0. This so far is the best all-around month he's had this season. Coming in third was Neil Brady, who came to life this month. 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points, third in scoring. Since arriving in Ottawa, Bob Kudelski has looked pretty good. Dave Archibald had some really good nights, but struggled greatly in others. When he did make history of scoring the first Senators shorthanded goal ever, Mark Freer was quite bad a lot of nights. Doug Smale was hit or miss whenever he was playing. Peluso had a bit of a rough month, while Jamie Baker was actually really good most nights. Jody Hull was good on several nights as well, but again had his struggles. Lamb dealt with injuries, and Lazaro had a few good outings. McBain was, after a really good November, struggled badly. Boschman still hasn't found a groove. Jelinek, however, had his best month so far, finally showing some spark. Norm McIver, of course, leads all defensemen in scoring once again, but was actually their best all-around blue liner all month, I have to say. And so far in their short history, he has been their most consistent player. Brad Shaw played pretty well for the most part, while Brad Marsh, who's played quite well since arriving, maybe had one of the worst months of his entire 15-year career. A team worst, a minus 13. Hammond actually showed signs of improvement, as did Darren Rumble, who actually played really great some nights. Luongo really isn't being of much use lately. Osiecki hasn't made any real impact. Jim Kite played a few games that was hit or miss, but was sent back to the minors. Either way, this is the best the Sens defense has looked all year. Jamie Baker made Sens history, becoming the first player on the team to finish the month on a plus side, the plus minus with a +2. Oh, and the poor goalies, but not near as poor before for Peter Sidorkiewicz. Yeah, he was 1-7-2, again just winning 1 game, but again still the only Sens goalie to win any games, and he had the best month so far again this year, improving his numbers. His goals against average was 3.86. He dramatically improved his save percentage to a respectable .874, and he played exceptionally well in several games. He had his struggles, but you could see there were times he was getting overworked. But poor Steve Weeks, though. His NHL career comes to an end with an 0-3-0 record this month, a 4.17 goals against average, and 810 save percentage. And again, those are Vezina numbers compared to his October. Daniel Berthiaume arrives in Ottawa as a new backup. He lost both games he started, played well in one, poorly in the other, has a goals against average of 5 on the button, and a save percentage of .848. It wasn't a very happy new year for the Sens as they lose 3 more to begin the month to bring their winless streak to 15. First, a rough 7-2 loss to the Sabres. Lazaro had 2 assists as Berthiaume gets another start but loses badly. Hammond also plays terribly here. Peason gets the start against the Rangers. He gets a nice winter tan from the red light going off behind him. He lets in 5 goals in 33 minutes and is pulled in a 6-2 loss to the Rangers. Archibald and Freer with the goals on that one. Hull and Brady were also really bad here. And their luck against the Devils ran out in a better effort than their previous 2 games ever, losing 6-4, solid outings from Peluso and Baker. But here we are, January 10th, 1993. The Battle of the Basement, the Clash of the Nothings, the lamest game ever played. I'm talking about the San Jose Sharks coming to town to face the Sens. The Sharks themselves are on a 6-game winless streak and have only won 6 games all year. They do have talent such as Kelly Kizio and a banged-up and aging Doug Wilson. But what will happen in this showdown of the suck? Well, the Sens look sharp as Bob Kudelski went on a rampage of goals. Sean Freer set him up on the power play. They're on an extra man advantage. Shaw helps Turgeon set up Bob for a 2nd goal of the game. Then Freer and McIver set up Kudelski for the first Sens hat trick in team history. It is 3-0 after 1. The Sharks try and bite, or in their case, nibble back. But they get 1 in the 2nd, another in the 3rd. But Daniel Berthiaume bars the door. The Senators get the win number 4 in a 3-2 triumph. And again, the Senators make history on this night. Bob Kudelski proving he was worth acquiring, being the first Senator with a hat trick. And great games for Sean Freer as well. and Daniel Berthone becomes the first goalie other than Peter Sidorkiewicz to get a win. The Sens on this night truly prove they are the cream of the crap. But the losing ways resume. Wayne Gretzky, who has only been back from surgery for a few games, was rolling into Ottawa, but the Sens were up 2-0 and fell apart when Berthone stopped 31 shots from his former team. McIver played well as Jelinek and Lamb returned from injury. The Sens fired 38 shots on Blue Star goalie Curtis Joseph, but Brett Hull and company put down the Sens 4-1, Hammond with the lone goal. The Penguins then waddled all over Peacehead with a 6-1 win. Hammond, Luongo, and Kudelski have a rough outing. Jelinek with the lone goal. Peacehead is awful again in net against the Islanders. 3 goals in 6 minutes on 4 shots. And the rest of the team isn't faring much better in a 7-2 loss. Again, very pathetic losses from the Sens out of the 4 games. And the Sens continue to look worse, if that was even possible. After a 5-2 loss to Quebec, Nordiques goaltender Ron Hextall said, "I probably could have scored with the goalie in net if I tried." Then, after a 7-2 loss to the Stars, Mike Modano stated, "Even my pal coach Gordon Bombay can't fix this bunch." In this game, however, defenseman Gordon Dineen was called up. The Sens were showing a bit more life in a 6-4 loss to the Capitals, Smale, Freer, and Lowen all playing pretty well. But Cap star Dale Hunter stated, "I hate that name, Turgeon." The Blues, led by Brett Hull and Brendan Shanahan, take the Sens down 5-1, and Brett Hull says after the game, "Not to hell with the Lady Byng Trophy, these guys suck." They have now lost 8 straight, and now again, I can't back any of these statements up, who am I kidding? And then they have to face their fellow basement-dwelling division rival, the Hartford Whalers, on January 28th. The Whalers, despite their bad year, have taken to the Sens pretty good this season. But on this night, Bob Kudelski explodes again, this time with 2 goals in the first period. Sens defense has actually given Berthone some room to breathe. The Whalers get 1 in the second, and the Sens still lead 2-1 after 2. But just 40 seconds into the third, McIver said, then Turgeon in on goal. He scores as 3-1 Sens. Lowe made it 4-1. The Whalers got one back, but Turgeon seals it with an empty netter. A 5-2 win, only their second win over a division rival and their 5th win all year. Kudelski is amazing with 2 goals. Turgeon, who's had a pretty rough month overall, scores 2. McIver, Peluso, and Lamb help out big time with 2 apples each. But the month would end in another loss, 5-3 on the road against the Montreal Canadiens. The Habs led 4-0 after 1, and the Sens are pretty much playing catch-up the rest of the way. Turgeon did have another 2-goal game and has reached the 20-goal mark for the 7th time in his career, and becomes the first Senators player to do so. Well, hey, 2-12-0. They win 2 games in a calendar month. Ain't that something? Yeah, well, despite that, the Sens were getting embarrassed more often than usual once again. They weren't just losing, they were getting owned left and right. And putting forth strong efforts that we saw the last couple months have disappeared. But, come on, they're 5-46-3. Have not won a single game on the road or even tied one. And after improving their goal input last month, drastically I might add, it decreased drastically. Again, just to under 2.5 goals per game. Still not their worst, however. Nah, but then again, the Tampa Bay Lightning actually had a bad month themselves, just above that with 2.7 goals per game. And the Sharks were even worse than anyone in the league. 1.8 goals per game. Yikes. The Sens still had the advantage in that one. Well, Bob Kudelski led the Senators in scoring. His first hat trick ever. Finds himself leading them all this month with 9 goals. Added 2 helpers for 11 points. Norm McIver again finds himself in the top 3 at number 2 with 2 goals, 7 assists for 9 points. While Sylvain Turgeon, who did not have the best month, came alive at the end of it with 6 goals, 2 helpers for 3rd place and 8 points overall. Neil Brady, after having one of the best months of his career, being among the team leaders in scoring last month, had just 1 assist, and that is it, and it was a -7. Jody Hull was barely anywhere to be found. Same goes for team captain Laurie Boschman. Doug Smale played a few great games, but a few very bad ones. Andrew McBain had injury issues, but was okay when healthy. Same with Mark Lamb. Lazaro, when in action, was actually pretty solid. Mark Freer had some great and downright not so great outings. Jelinek wasn't too bad again this month. Peluso started returning to a bit of a form. In the few games Blair Action, I can't pronounce that for the life of me, played, he didn't make much of a dent, neither did Murphy, while Lowen showed some heart, and J.D. Baker, however, was once again a workhorse out there. So yes, of course, McIver led all defensemen in scoring, and a decent month as a whole, but Brad Shaw seemed to be their best overall defenseman in a rough month overall for this core, who actually really improved last month. Brad Marsh only saw limited action, but was much better than he was last month. Osiecki and Luongo were very ineffective after showing major signs of improvement the month prior. Both Hammond and Rumble incurred major setbacks, while part-timer Kent Painter really didn't add much. And again, Jamie Baker leads his team to plus-minus with a +1, and maybe their most consistent forward so far this year. And to the goalies, and Peacehead, after improving month after month, was abysmal in January. 7 losses, not one single win or a tie. And before this month, he was the only Sens goalie with any wins. He was a disastrous 7.17 goals against average, an inexcusable 784 save percentage. Guess Steve Weeks must have rubbed off on him. He's still in his head many nights this season, don't get me wrong. Seems this month his head was up his... Anyway, Daniel Berthaud, has both wins for the Sens this month, with a 2-5-0 record, a passable 3.69 goals against average, and actually a respectable 880 save percentages. He was indeed excellent on many nights. The Sens began the month hosting a pretty good Winnipeg Jets team, led by Finnish rookie sensation Teemu Selanne. And he scores one of the 3 goals that puts the Jets up 3-0 by the second period. Then, while killing a penalty late in the period, Doug Smale still has the skills in that department, clears the puck out to Mark Freer, who's been the Sens' best penalty killer this year. He scores, but with the Sens on the board. Then, just over 2 minutes later, Mark Lamb scores to put the Sens within 1 at the end of 2 periods. But just 1:42 into the third period, power play, Baker sees Turgeon, who sees Kudelski. He scores. The game is tied, but the Jets retake the lead less than a minute later. Not long after, team captain Laurie Boschman is hauled down while going in on goal, and he gets a chance at a penalty shot on Jets goalie Mike O'Neill. Well, Boschman goes in on goal, and he scores the first penalty shot goal in Senators history. The game ends in a 4-4 tie, an excellent effort and comeback from the Sens here. Boschman, who's been having a bit of a rough season, despite being a respected captain, makes history, scoring on a penalty shot, another first for the team. Turgeon played very well here to boot, but overall, a great effort from everyone on the ice. Another Western team was paying a visit to the Senators, and it's the lowly Oilers of Edmonton. Peacehead gets the start here, and he's playing very well early on, making some big stops, and the Sens up front respond as Kudelski and Freer set up Doug Smale. It's 1-0 after 1. Then on a power play early in the second, Shaw gets it. Turgeon continues it. They set up Kudelski for a goal, 2-0. Just under 3 minutes later, Turgeon sees an open Kudelski, who gets his second goal of the game, and his third point. The Sens lead 3-0 after 2. And despite the Oilers' attempting to come back, the Sens hang on to win 3-2. An incredible game from Bob Kudelski. 2 goals, an apple, 3 points in on all Senators' goals. He is proving to be an asset further and further. Turgeon again played very well with 2 helpers. Sidorkiewicz plays his best game in several weeks and breaks his own personal losing streak. Big game for our boys, and tying their record best, 2 games unbeaten. This, I believe, deserves a break. The NHL All-Star break, that is. And no matter how bad a team is, they get to send at least 1 representative to the big game on February 6, 1993 at the Montreal Forum. But the Sens get 2. What the f***? Okay, well, there's context here. Peter Sidorkiewicz is their official selection for this game. Brad Marsh, on the other hand, was the official commissioner selection for the Wales Conference. And again, it's his first All-Star game. It's nice to see the 15-year veteran, hardworking player get rewarded. The Wales were leading 6-0 after the first period. Peacehead entered the game to play the second period. And that's actually pretty good overall. He only let in 2 goals for an All-Star game. That's quite impressive. And Brad Marsh, who has only had 2 assists all year, sets up Flyer star Mark Recchi for a goal. The Wales lead 12-2 after 2. Then something pretty crazy happened in the third period. The Wales were leading 14-2 when Marsh, who you can count on one hand in his entire career how many times he's gone towards the opposing net, stands in front of the Stars goalie John Casey as he deflects a Kevin Stevens shot into the net. Brad Marsh, who has just scored 23 goals in 15 years, scores his first and only NHL All-Star Game goal, smiling from ear to ear, getting a rousing ovation from the fans in attendance. What a moment for the seasoned vet, as the Wales win the game 16-6. But it was back to business on February 8th, 1993, as the Sens return home carrying their 2-game unbeaten streak to face the Buffalo Sabres, who were improving as the season progressed, thanks to red-hot superstars Pat LaFontaine and Alexander McGillney. Veteran All-Star goalie Grant Fuhrer, who they had just acquired from Toronto, gets the start for the Sabres, while Peacehead gets the start for the Sens. The Sens did tie the Sabres this year, but have lost the other outings, including that humiliating 12-3 thumping. And it looks bad early. The Sabres score 16 seconds in and eventually take a 2-0 lead. But late in the first, on a power play, McIver steers, slides it back to Dineen, and Freer in the right spot scores the goal. Just amazing on special teams, it seems, this year. The Sens are on the board. It's 2-1 Sabres after 1. But in the second period, Peace and Fuhr put on a show. But that still means the Sabres lead 2-1 after 2. Time is winding down on the third. The Sabres still lead by a goal. With 6:16 remaining, Andrew McBain scores as the Civic Center explodes. Set up by Sean Freer, it's tied 2-2. But less than 2 minutes later, with 4:30 to play, power play, Dineen up to Freer to McIver, he scores! The Sens lead 3-2. And with exactly 1 minute to play, Doug Smale scores an empty netter. The Senators win 4-2, a big upset. Win lucky number 7, their largest unbeaten streak of the year, and in their history, 3 games, and back-to-back wins for the first time. And what a career night for Mark Freer, a goal, 2 assists, 3 points. Gord Dineen plays his best game as a Senator up to this point. And the former Jets, Smale, McBain, and Boschman were all fantastic. McIver was on point, and Peace said, rebounding from his terrible January. Another huge game, 33 saves, his 5th win of the year. And wow, this is the first time that he's notched 2 wins in a calendar month. Truly a momentous occasion. Unbeaten in 3, 2 straight wins. Can they keep up? No. The Sens fall back into their, well, not so old ways, I guess. First embarrassing loss to the Flyers, 8-1. Peace is awful, on the other hand, on this one, letting in 3 goals in 13 minutes, and Berthome isn't much better. He lets in another 5. An awful game for Kudelski as well. Baker gets the lone goal. A game that saw combined 88 penalty minutes, and also Sylvain Turgeon is hurt. The next game, Peace was back to form in net, and the rest of the team put up a poor effort, however, against the Habs, losing 4-1, Kudelski getting the goal in that one. The Sens looked better against Sakic and the Nordiques. They had a 3-2 lead, and Turgeon returned, but they lose 6-4, despite 2 goals from McIver and 2 assists from Kudelski, and a goal and a helper from McBain. And they lose Turgeon again. Now he'll be out for several weeks. 3 losses in a row. And guess what? The Sens double that to 6 straight losses. However, on February 20th, they did give the Habs a big challenge despite a bleak start. With the Habs scoring 17 seconds in, Hull and Lamb made it 2-1 for the Sens. The Habs tied at 2-2 after 1. Then Montreal took a 4-2 lead, but then McIver and Lamb fought for the tie. It was 4-4 after 2, but then Vincent Danfou scores the lone third period goal, and the Sens can't solve Rossico. They lose a 5-4 heartbreaker. Lamb played great, however, with 2 goals, and Hull played his best game in several weeks. Then it was out to the peg, and despite being tied 2-2 after 2, and fired 40 shots on Bob Essenza, the Jets took off with a 6-3 win, Baker and McIver each with 2 points. Then the 2 scored off in Saskatchewan, where the Sens were destroyed, 8-2. Poor Peace in for all 8 goals. McCain, Lamb, and Hammond were awful. Smale was atrocious, but Freer had 2 helpers. Good Lord, can this get any worse? Yes, it's the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins, and while Mario Lemieux is still undergoing radiation treatment for his Hodgkin's diagnosis, and even Jaromir Jagr's out of action in this one, this team still had Ronnie Francis, Joe Mullen, Kevin Stevens, Larry Murphy, and Tom Barrasso to top it off in net, and coached by Scotty Bowman. And there's no mercy rule in hockey. The Pens defense is all over the Sens. They are not getting many chances on Barrasso, and when they do, he's there to stop them. They are launching an all-out attack on poor P. Sid, and Rick Tocchet gets one past him. It's 1-0 Pens after 1. In the second, however, the Sens still can't get much going, but Zadorkowicz is standing on his head. However, it remains 1-0 after 2. The Sens are keeping up with the Penguins everywhere but the scoreboard, it seems, and then 5:02 into the third, Gord Dineen scores his first goal of the year, and the game is tied at 1. However, 44 seconds later, Norm McIver gives the Sens the lead, and Peace is feeling the pressure, but he's robbing Ronnie. No goal for Joe. Stop Stevens. He's playing the game of his life here. Can they hold on? 5 minutes to play. The Pens look like they are angry that this team even has a lead against them. Peace stays focused. He's not losing anything. 1 minute remaining. The Civic Center is louder than opening night. They know how huge this could be. 30 seconds. Even the commentators are shocked. 10 seconds. No, this is a dream. It's just time to wake up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's a dream, all right. A dream come true for Senators and their fans. They defeat the Pittsburgh Penguins 2-1. This may be bigger than opening night. They just beat the best damn team in the league. And while it was a big game for Gordon Dineen in on both Sens goals, the story was Peter Sidorkiewicz, who was named the first star of the game and given a standing ovation from his hometown fans, and deservedly so. What a night for the expansion Senators. Also, around this time, Mel Bridgman traded little-used defenseman Brad Miller for a 9th-round draft pick. There you go, Mel. For a draft pick. You're getting it. You're getting it. But again, they just can't carry that momentum on the road with them. They lose 5-2 on the Devils as they still have not won a road game this year. Kudelski got both goals, and Piset faced 51 shots from a Devils team that's not overly offensive-minded, stopping 46. To end the month, they'd have to face a red-hot Nordiques team who they've had much difficulty with this year and have put up some good efforts against. And they're down 2-0 early on. But late in the period, on a power play, Baker gets it back to Dineen, who slaps it home, sends trail 2-1 after 1. Then in the second period, it's Rumble to Peluso to McBain. McBain. Let's get scoring. And the Sens tie it 2-2. Then on a penalty kill, Mark Freer gives the Sens a lead, 3-2 after 2. But 49 seconds into the third, Sundin ties it for the Nordiques. Just past the midway point, Bob Kudelski scores to restore the lead. But the Nords tie it again. Time is winding down. Looks like we're headed to overtime. The Sens are pressing on a power play. Then Kudelski back to McIver with Baker, who scores with 37 seconds left. 5-4 lead for the Senators. Jody Ho seals it with an empty netter. Another big upset. 6-4 Sens win. We have now won 2 out of 3, and both over powerhouse clubs. What a way to end the month. Baker and Kudelski each had a goal and a helper, but everyone on that ice made this happen tonight. What a way. Wow, what a way to end the month of February. Their best month so far. The Sens, 9 wins. They've now beaten 4 division rivals. Boston remains the only team from the Adams they haven't beaten. Either way, this is huge. Wow. Their best month yet. A 4-7-1 record after winning just 5 games all year. And they had some bad defeats this month too. But, hey, 9 points in 1 month is a team record now. However, their record of 9-53-4, well, leaves them eliminated from playoff contention. And yeah, the sky is blue, grass is green, and Ally Afraidy has a skullet. But this team did show a lot of growth this month. Bonus now seems to have the roster he wants to end the year. The Sens also improved their scoring again, averaging 3 goals on the dot this month. While their expansion counterparts, the Lightning, are crumbling this year because, well, Espo is going to be Espo, with averaging just 2 goals this month. The Sucky Sharks, who only have 8 wins all year, barely average 2.4 goals this month. But what's crazy, ladies and gents, is that the Senators are going for a mark once thought unachievable. Their 10th win of the year. Get ready to raise the banner. Bob Kudelski leads the team in scoring for the second straight month. 8 goals, 4 assists for 12 points. And is the first Sens player to average a point a game in the calendar month since McIver did it back in October. But speaking of McIver, he is second in team scoring with 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points. Still their most consistent player. While Jamie Baker continues to be a workhorse with 3 goals, 7 assists for 10 points. Third in team scoring, but despite leading the team in plus-minus the previous 2 months, he was a -8 this month. Turgeon was looking really good until his injury took him down. Mark Freer was actually excellent this month. This was also the best team captain Laurie Boschman looked all year. But McBain wasn't too good. Doug Smale, the third former Jet here, had some excellent games and also some dreary ones. Neil Brady was okay in the limited action he saw. Mark Lamb was solid most nights. Jody Ho improved this month. Part-timer Murphy was decent. Peluso and Jelinek both had a rough month. Lewin was passable. Yes, Norm McIver once again leads all defensemen in scoring, but overall I'd say their best blue liner this month was Gord Dineen, as he really lent a lot to the struggling blue line. Hammond was hit or miss, as was Rumble. Brad Shaw was actually brutal this month. Luongo still ain't much. Brad Marsh was okay in his limited action, but he had that big all-star game moment. Oddly enough, defenseman Marco Siecki, who only played 3 games all month and hadn't done much all season really, led the team with a +1 and was placed on waivers and picked up by the Jets where he'd play 4 games and then went to the Stars where he played 5 and never played in the NHL again. Well, what a weird year this continues to be for the goalies as they reverse roles. Sid, from having the worst month of the season, probably had his best. 4-5-0, 4 wins in 1 month. He had 3 all year before February. His 4.14 goals against average is a big improvement, obviously, over last month, albeit not great, but his 887 save percentage is quite good. He really roared forward this month with some incredible performances, including the unforgettable win over the Penguins. Berthilme was bad after a pretty good month last month, 0-2-1 record, and his goals against average is over 6, and his save percentage is sad 843. Well, after that highly improved February, the Senators need 1 win to reach what was thought impossible, the milestone of 10. As bad as things are, they passed the 74-75 Capitals. They have now tied the 1980-81 Jets. Hey, at this rate, they could catch the 75-76 Kansas City Scouts. How great would that be? Or even the 1989-90 Quebec Nordiques, who I've covered on this channel. Oh, you could cut the anticipation with a knife as the Sens go into March. And they proceed to lose all 10 games this month. Oh my goodness, they begin with an overtime loss to the Sharks. There was one team the Sens should have been able to beat at least twice this year. It's them! Anyway, in the game, McBain had 2 assists and Peluso had a goal and a helper. After that, the Sens went crazy against Gretzky, Curry, Luke, and the Kings in LA. Literally a seesaw battle as the Kings kept taking a lead and the Sens kept on tying it until it was 3-3, but then the Kings took a 5-3 lead after 1. P-Sid's night is over. The Sens don't give up, but they lose 8-6. Kudelski had a goal and 2 helpers for another 3-point night for him. Baker had 3 assists, and Peluso had 2 goals, while Shaw, Brady, and McIver each had 2 points. One of their best scoring games this season, and they lose. Next. Well, despite Lamb's 2 goals and Berthone being solid in net, the Sens lose 4-2 to Chicago. And then it was 6-3 loss to the Bruins, the only division rival they haven't beaten, and Murphy with the biggest night of his career so far, 2 goals. Lamb stays hot with 2 helpers. They got another chance against Boston, but the Bruins defense held the Sens just 15 shots on goal. McIver getting the lone goal in the 4-1 loss. P-Sid not too good again here, while Sylvain Turgeon has returned to the lineup. Then it's another rough night for Sidorkiewicz, but the Sens look better in a 5-4 loss to the Rangers. Hull, Murphy, and Shaw each had 2 points. Then expansion counterparts Tampa Bay came to town, who have had a rough go of it as of late themselves. Like I said, Espo gonna be Espo. A very exciting game that went into overtime, but the Sens lose 3-2. But Hull plays a beauty, scoring both Sens goals, including a shorthander. And again, the Senators brought it to the Habs. They led 2-0 at one point. Berthone was like a firing target, facing 49 shots. And the Sens led 3-2 as time was winding down, but the Habs tied it with 1:19 to play. They lose again in overtime. Shaw led the way with 2 points. Poor Berthone deserved better in this one. They also had a good showing against Buffalo. Sidorkiewicz actually plays his best game in a while, stopping 31 shots. But the Sens can't get much past the Dominator in net with a 3-1 loss. Archibald with the goal. We interrupt this plethora of patheticness to bring you a breaking news update. On March 28, 1993, when the Senators visited Buffalo, it was the 1,000th career NHL game for team captain Laurie Boschman. It hasn't been the easiest year for the leader, but regardless, he still has had a very good career, and kudos to him for reaching the mark. Again, kudos to Laurie Boschman, the first Sens captain who had a tough task ahead of him from the start. But we now return you to your regularly scheduled sad state of affairs. And they end the month against the Penguins on the road, the very team they shocked last month, but there's just a few problems. 1, Lemieux is back. 2, Ron Francis is on fire. And 3, it's a road game. And the Sens did put up a fight, but lose 6-4. Freer, who has had a terrible month, has 2 assists, as does McIver, while Shaw has a goal and a helper. And mercifully, it's all over in March. No wins, 10 losses, no ties. Yes, they managed to win at least 1 game every month and won 4 last month. Coming out their best month yet fail miserably here. And yes, there was a lot of close games. And yes, I've given them credit for big efforts before. But there were actually a few games here they probably could have easily won, rather than just good efforts. This is a big setback. Did I forget the trade deadline? Oh, I'm sorry. No, Bridgman got rid of another draft pick for the rights to Dmitry Filmonov. The Jets. The Sens may not even get their 10th win at this rate. Their goal production has slipped slightly, of course, to a 2.8. Actually, it's still better than both their expansion counterparts, the Lightning, at 2.7, and the sophomore sucky Sharks, with their abysmal 2.1 goals a game. With 7 games to go, I don't know. Well, Norm McIver led the team in scoring this month. 3 goals, 7 helpers for 10 points. I give credit to McIver's work ethic this season. He truly is the most consistent player in this club. That cannot be overstated enough. And again, averages a point a game. Brad Shaw, however, was excellent this month. 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points. And was working tirelessly, it seemed, every shift this month. Coming in third was Jody Hall, 4 each with goals and helpers, 8 points. He had a really good March. Jamie Baker was still working hard out there, but had a few rough games. Mark Freer, after having an excellent February, was abysmal in March. Sylvan Turgeon returned and really has not made any difference at all. Dave Archibald returned and had some decent outings. Bob Kudelski, who led the team in scoring in the prior 2 months, fell into mediocrity and sometimes worse. Lowen and Peluso had some decent games. The big surprise was Rob Murphy, who played very well in several games. And McBain was hit or miss, as was team captain Boschman. And yes, again, McIver leads the defenseman in scoring, but kudos to Brad Shaw for the month he had. Rebounding from a pretty sucky February, he is tied with fellow defenseman Darren Rumble in a plus-minus this month, leaving the whole team with an even 0. And you know what? Rumble had his best stretch of games this season so far in March, oddly enough. Brad Marsh was solid in the action he saw this month. Luongo played slightly better. Hammond was brutal. But after arguably being their best blue liner in February, Gord Dineen was a disaster in March. Yeah, it's pretty much a given the goalies are winless. Sidorkiewicz 0-6-0, Berthome 0-4-0, but Berthome was much better of the two. He played really well most of the way, and had the best save percentage of any Sens goalie in a given month this year with an excellent .899. His 3.80 goals against average is respectable enough under the circumstances, but he said again, saw his numbers decline. After coming off a really good February, this was a bad month for him. 4.89 goals against average, below average, .833 save percentage. Bring on April. Yeah, let's get this stretch over with, shall we? The 10-game losing streak turns to 14 with a 4-game homestand. First, they fired in a bunch of shots against Stéphane Fiset and the Nordiques, but would lose 4-2. Berthome faced an onslaught. Kudelski and Rumble had 2 points each. Next is Hartford. Fiset lets in 3 goals on 3 shots in 10 minutes. His night is done. Berthome ain't much better. Sens lose 7-3. Baker, McIver, and Luongo, however, each have 2 points. Then they were shut out 3-0 by the powerful Canucks. Oddly enough, it's only the second time that's happened to the Sens this season that they've been shut out. Then they are crushed 6-1 by the Whalers. This would be funny if it wasn't so sad. Turgeon with a lone goal. 14 straight losses. A 3-game road trip coming up. They're 0-39-0 on the road. The worst road record in modern history. Even the 74-75 Capitals won 1 road game. Hell, the 80-81 Jets won 2. The 89-90 Nordiques won 4. Hell, the Sharks this year have won 3. Oh, the Sens' 10th win seems like a big improbability now as they head to Long Island to face the Islanders. And the Isles struck just 114 in. The Sens are showing some spark in this game, but the Isles' defense ain't letting them get too close to the net. Sylvan Turgeon, however, does score his 25th goal of the year. It's tied 1-1 after 1. The Isles take a 2-1 lead in the second, but Kudelski and Murphy set up Boschman. It's tied 2-2. But the Isles take a 3-2 lead with 32 seconds to play in the second period. The Isles have been launching an all-out attack on Peter Sidorkiewicz, but he's standing on his head. The Isles still lead midway in the third period, but Shaw sends in Kudelski, who ties the game 3-3. Time is winding down, and this is bad. I mean, yeah, the game is tied, and the Sens could get a tie. But they've suffered quite a bit of OT losses this year. It still keeps them from their 10th win, and Boschman scores! Boschman scores with 56 seconds left! Assisted by Archibald and Murphy. The Isles, however, resent this. They are going to put as much pressure in the Sens in the final seconds as they can. But then, Boschman takes a loose puck. He scores the empty netter with 1 second left. The Senators win 5-3. What a performance from the captain, Laurie Boschman. A hat trick, the third of his career, his first since February 3rd, 1988. Been a wacky year for the captain, but he still had something left to give and did so. And then some on this night. Hey, Kudelski was also superb with a goal and 2 helpers. 3 points. He said was great in net. And the Sens finally win a road game and reach win number 10. Sound out the party horns. New Year's rockin' Eve has nothing on the Sens fans celebrating in the streets. Even Coach Rick Bowness released a statement saying, as an honored member of the 1980-81 Winnipeg Jets, this means more to me than reaching 30 points that season. And then General Manager Mel Bridgman took a break from reading the want ads and said, there was a game today? Well, either way, the Sens reached 10 wins. Again, whether those statements are true is up in the air. But the Sens would lose the next 2 games on this road trip. Again, they took it to Boston, as they have a lot this year, but lost 4-2. Sidorkiewicz with 30 saves in that one. The Sens are then put down hard by the Nordiques, 6-2. Baker with both goals in that one. Berthone faces 46 shots. Murphy actually played really bad here. Well, at least they get to finish the season at home. April 14, 1993, hosting the Boston Bruins. Again, the only division rival they have yet to beat this year. And they played reasonably well against them in losses, as I just stated, but the Bruins are on a hot streak, and so it won't be easy. Boston led 2-0 after one, and then 4-0 in the second. It didn't look good, but the Sens still don't give up. Lamb gets it back to Rumble, who sets up Archibald, who scores, breaks the shutout. It's 4-1 after 2. 5-10 into the third. Kudelski sets up Boschman, who scores his 229th and final career goal in his final NHL game. The Sens pressed as the best they could, but the Bruins' defense was too much. They lose 4-2, and their season draws to a merciful close. Well, better than March, I guess. They get 1 win, finishing 1-7-0 for the month, achieving the milestone 10th win, getting their first and only road win of the year. They finished the year 10 wins, 70 losses, 4 ties. Yeah, sorry. Even for an expansion team, this is ridiculous. Sure, those 10 wins were pretty hard-earned, and they played fantastic on many nights and losses too, but this mishmash of lineups combined with late-year injuries certainly didn't help. The lack of communication between Rick Bowness and Mel Bridgman also didn't help. This would be some kind of record, you'd think, right? Well, very close. The Sharks actually set the record for most losses with 71 this very season, and tied the Sens with the second least amount of points in the post-Original Six era with 24. The Sens, however, had the third least amount of wins in that era, just ahead of the 74-75 Caps, who had 8, and the 80-81 Jets, who had 9. They merely averaged 2.1 goals a game this month, while the Lightning averaged close to 3 in April, and the Sharks actually averaged 3 in April. Ugh. Well, for the third time in 4 months, Bob Kudelski led the team in scoring in a given month. 2 goals, 4 assists for 6 points, and played better than last month. Tied for second is Jamie Baker, perhaps the Sens' most consistent forward all year, with 3 goals, 2 assists for 5 points. And the only man to make the top 3 scores each month is Norm McIver. He had a goal and 4 assists for 5 points, tied for second. Team captain Laurie Boschman ended the year on a high note. Sylvain Turgeon played a couple decent outings, but again, his inconsistency has become a concern. Mark Lamb had an excellent month. Andrew McBain looked pretty solid. Murphy was quite bad after a good month prior. Freer played pretty badly. Hull was okay. Archibald was, Lewin was decent. Peluso was, Yes, every month this year, Norm McIver has led defense and scoring. That's no surprise. And April, of course, is no different. But Darren Rumble was probably the best all-around defenseman this month. He was excellent. And again, tied the team lead in plus-minus for the second straight month with a +2. His progression this year has been actually pretty good. He was tied with team captain Laurie Boschman, who went out like a tried-and-true leader with the best month he had all season to boot. Brad Shaw was hit or miss on a given night to end the season. The veteran Brad Marsh was sadly ending his career with a whimper. Luongo actually had a pretty good month to end the season. Gordon Dineen improved over his bad March, while Roderick Hammer saw action for the first time and wasn't overly that good. And surprisingly, Ken Hammond ended the year pretty strong. Well, the goalies can finally breathe at last. This season is over. Peter Sidorkiewicz ended the year solidly, garnering the only win of the month and finishing with a 3.95 goals against average, which is almost a whole goal less than last month, so very impressive, and a decent 886 save percentage for April. Daniel Berthome stood on his head a couple nights, but his stats sadly don't dictate that. He was 0-4-0 with a subpar 866 save percentage, although again, on this team, really not the worst, and a rough 4.83 goals against average. Barely a day after the Sens season ended, Mel Bridgman was fired as general manager, and good riddance. He was in over his head and completely clueless, made deals that didn't make a lick of sense, and his lack of communication with coach Rick Bowness didn't help matters either. There was an incident actually during the season between Bridgman and fan favorite Darcy Loewen, as Bridgman wanted to restructure Loewen's contract. At first, Loewen refused to renegotiate on the advice of many others, but Bridgman, like a true tyrant, threatened to send Loewen to the minors. So eventually he relented, wanting to live out his dream of being an NHL player. He tried to do the same to Andrew McBain as well. The story was leaked out to the media, and the Sens fans really turned against Bridgman heavily, and these moves also lost in the respect of many of the players on the team as well. Bridgman, as of 2024, has not been associated with hockey or had any job in the game since. Surprisingly, Rick Bowness kept his job as head coach. He did seem to have the respect of his players, and to be fair, was put in a bad situation. While he himself struggled to build a consistent, steady roster, again, he wasn't really given much. Ownership felt he deserved another chance. Speaking of ownership, however, Bruce Firestone stepped away as owner despite how important he was to this franchise. The building of the new arena was causing headaches and financial strain, and he handed ownership to Rod Brydon. Now, he was the CEO of Terrace Limited, and be that as it may, despite the change, Bruce Firestone is still a beloved figure in Ottawa for the fact that he made the Senators a reality. With his tireless campaign efforts and never say die attitude, he never gave up on his goal, and it came to fruition. But now, that brings us to the final numbers. The Sens were either last or second to last in all these categories. The least amount of goals scored in the league with 202. The 23rd least amount of goals scored on with 395. Dead last on the power play, second worst penalty kill. And for their expansion counterparts, the Lightning, despite cracks in their foundation as the season progressed, they built the better expansion club. They did, however, have the worst penalty kill in the league, so the Sens went up them there. Their power play was 20th, and they had the 21st most goals scored in the league, had better goaltending than the Sens as they gave up the 19th least amount of goals of the 24 teams. Also, they won more than double Senators games this year. And the Sucky Sharks, who every bit as bad overall, had awful goaltending and gave up the most goals in the league, barely beat the Sens out for most goals scored, with second, least in the league. But their power play and penalty kill was ranked better than Ottawa's each at 22nd. Norm McIver led the entire team in scoring with 17 goals, 46 assists for 63 points in 80 games. He was by far their most consistent player and brought in to be their most offensive-minded defenseman and delivered where he was supposed to. Despite a terrible minus 46, his work ethic was very present game in and game out. Speaking of work ethic, however, Jamie Baker was second in team scoring, and I'd have to say was the team's most consistent and hardest working forward. He had 19 goals, 29 assists for 48 points in 76 games. It may not sound like much. Again, Baker truly was a workhorse. His minus 20 may not be much to look at, but on this team, that's respectable enough. Third in scoring was Sylvain Turgeon. His 25 goals led the team, and he added 18 assists for 43 points in 72 games. He did miss 12 games due to injury, but his consistency, easy for me to say, was still an issue, as he was hot to start the season but cooled down several times and had many warm and cold periods. The one great decision Mel Bridgman made was trading for Bob Kudelski, the team's only other 20-goal scorer, who's also a hard worker out there. Mark Lamb was also doing all he could despite some rough outings. Jody Hull could say the same. Mark Freer was hot and cold. Neil Brady, despite scoring the Sens' first goal and playing a handful of really good games, never fully found his groove. Mike Peluso was nasty as ever out there, but also played very well in many games. Darcy Loewen was a folk hero to Sens fans. Dave Archibald was kind of a waste of a deal, and the former Jets, Doug Smale, was solid on some nights and soft on others, injured, scratched, and in other words, never did fully gel with this team. Andrew McBain had the odd good game, while team captain Laurie Boschman did provide a respectable leadership, but it wasn't until the end of the season where he found his groove. Out of these former Jets players, only McBain would be back the next season. Former Czech star Thomas Jelinek got off to a terrible start, was getting better, then got hurt and never played in the NHL again, but he would still go on to play hockey overseas. Rob Murphy was inconsistent. Jeff Lazaro showed a little bit of promise. This forward core is a mess, and then many of these guys either won't be back at all or just wouldn't last much longer in Ottawa. For plus minus, the end of the year criteria for these videos is that you either had to play a minimum of 20 games or you had to be acquired at the trade deadline. But with just 26 games played, Jeff Lazaro's minus 8 actually leads this team. Lazaro also played well during his time this season in New Haven, but the Sens felt he wasn't really a key to their future and didn't re-sign him. He never played in the NHL again. Yep, Norm McIver led all defensemen in scoring on the Sens. Big shock, I know, but his assets to the club are very tremendous going forward. Brad Shaw played 81 games, was great and abysmal. and everything in between, depending on the night. Ken Hammond did get better towards the end of the season despite an awful start, but he too never played an NHL game again. Veteran Brad Marsh announced his retirement, was well loved by Sens fans, and was highly respected, and did play solidly in several games. Chris Luongo was pretty damn bad, but again looked better as the season was ending, but his time in Ottawa was done. Darren Rumble's progression, however, was quite a highlight to watch. As the season went on, he just kept getting better and better. Gord Dineen proved to add some substance to this bad blue line, while Mark Rosiecki, before he was traded, didn't deliver much of anything. The part-timers were even worse. And the poor goalies. Peter Sidorkiewicz, you really have to feel bad for him. A record of 846-3, and hey, there was many a night he was sensational in net. But many nights, of course, he was a disaster. But also his defense had let him down a great deal. He had a 4.43 goals against average and 8.56 save percentage. Again, not at all great. But despite how liked he was by Sens fans, his NHL career never fully recovered after this. Singles for Daniel Berthome, who, again, I have to say, was a smart move by Bridgman. He was 217-1, his 4.30 goals against average and 8.71 save percentage led the Senators, and it was what it was, but he too played great many nights. But again, his career was effectively ruined ultimately by this. He never fully bounced back. Steve Weeks. Oh, poor Steve Weeks. He got the worst of it all. He was embarrassingly bad in net, 0-5-0, a horrendous 7.23 goals against average, a nauseating 7.92 save percentage. He retired during the season as he was also playing really bad in New Haven. And prospect Darren Madley, well, he lost both games he played in, was a disastrous 6.67 goals against average, a complete failure with a 7.73 save percentage. However, he actually looked good while playing in New Haven. He's not quite done yet. But, 3 out of the 4 goalies basically ruined already at this point, and only Berthome and Madley would be back. And, Berthome's little 1993-94 season, yeah, we'll talk about that another day. Now, let's see the categories the Sens made the top 10 in. Hey, Mike Peluso had the 5th most penalty minutes in the NHL that year with 318. So that's, it's not the most negative thing in the world. It's, basically that's as close as anything positive the Sens would have in the top 10 in any category this year. Sidorkiewicz, however, did lead the league in most goals allowed and most losses. Brad Shaw was tied for first with Murray Craven and Gary Galley for most power play goals on ice against. Shaw, McIver, and Lamb were 2nd, 4th, and 9th respectively for most goals on ice against. Ouch. But hey, time for award season, and wow, the Sens actually got a vote. One singular vote for an award. Mark Lamb got a vote for the Selke Trophy, tied for 18th place. As good as Mark Lamb has to be, do you think this might be a sympathy vote? Mind you, I guess if that's the case, I guess more players on this team would have gotten votes for other awards. Yeah, sorry, nobody on this club has a snowball's chance in hell of getting into the Hall of Fame. And don't get me wrong, bad teams I've covered on this channel have had Hall of Famers. Hell, the 89-90 Nordiques had 4. A lot of guys on the Sens team had excellent careers, but most of them before they got there. But nothing Hall of Fame worthy. Again, an expansion year is supposed to help put together a foundation to build on. Nobody expects instant success. Chances are it's going to be a losing season. But now the Sens still need to put together that foundation again. Tampa did that much better despite their faults. What would happen to the Sharks next is nothing short of a miracle. And with 2 more teams arriving next season, things in Ottawa ain't looking promising. Well, you laughed, you cried, and you were downright terrified, no doubt, during this video. But the horror is far from over in Ottawa. And we will look further at the Sens' journey in the near future. But indeed, that does it for our look at the 1992-93 Ottawa Senators. What team season do you think we should consider covering in the future? Leave a suggestion in the comments, like and share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And until next time, I'll see ya!